Chapter 466, 5-Element Fog Shield. Such a powerful talisman. Zhuemo felt the fog chains on his body tighten, his breathing became difficult and he could hear the bone-aching creaks coming from his bones. If the great Daimyo physique was not so strong, this grinding pressure would have ground his flesh and blood into powder. But the twisting still caused Zhuemo enormous pain. He unhesitatingly activated the flame seal armor. The fire-red flame seal armor suddenly appeared. It was like igniting oil when the Great Day Banded Flame touched the fog chains. The Great Day Banded Flame grew and covered Zhuemo's body. He was like a burning ball of fire. At the same time, a vast sword essence shot out into the sky among the roiling fog. A burst of Buddhist chants could be heard. Threads of golden light streamed out of the 5-colored fog that covered the sky, the warm and calm Danya essence filled the space. Xia Shan was inside a 7-colored round shield. This round shield was extremely beautiful and glittered. When the 5-colored fog neared, it was possible to hear the pops as the shield was being corroded. Gu Minggong's expression changed slightly. The 5-element fog shield was connected to his mind and everything that happened within it was known to him. These 4 people were not easy to deal with. His 5-element fog chains had trapped many heroes before, yet these 4 had so easily broken free. He couldn't help but feel wary. Even though the fog chains were the talisman's simplest killing move, but he still felt insecure that the 4 did it so easily. Ning Yi was also shocked, but he was not afraid. He laughed madly and said, "Ah! Not bad, not bad. They have some power. My blood fiend Azura umbrella lacks powerful souls. The Azura is hard to form, and you have come knocking on the door. None of you will escape today." The blood fiend Azura umbrella in Ning Yi's hands was made by collecting extremely mean and corrupt blood fiends. The numerous blood fiends in the umbrella were as vast as the sea, countless innocent souls floating within it as though it was hell. If he could capture powerful souls in the umbrella, he could cultivate the soul into an Azura and the power of the umbrella would grow exponentially. If this umbrella was forged to its limits, it could become its own world. But powerful souls were hard to find. That was until today, when Ningyi found that these 4 all had powerful souls that fit the requirements. That was especially true for that sword Xiao with the black sword, a soul that strong was extremely rare. The stronger the souls, the more powerful the Azura that was forged. If he used this person's soul to forge the blood fiend Azura, he didn't know how strong it would be. Ning Yi was overjoyed. If he knew there was such a powerful soul, he would think of ways to kill and capture it, even if he hadn't been asked to. This was a temptation he could not resist. He was really lucky today. Without another word, he leapt at Wei Sheng. Yuan Xian's eyes were lightly locked onto that bright golden light. The vast Dhyana essence exuded through that light caused shock in him, and also his eyes to become red. He came from a small sect, and the Skanda staff scripture was something he had accidentally stumbled on in a cave. He was endowed with great talent, and the Skanda staff scripture was like adding wings to a tiger. His cultivation increased by the day and he gradually entered the ranks of experts. He had used great effort after becoming Jindan to gather all types of materials to forge this Skanda staff in his hand. Yet when he saw the other's pure Dhyana essence, he still could not stop his eyes from turning red. What the other cultivated was definitely an extremely profound Dhyana scripture, one even more profound than his Skanda staff scripture. He had completely studied the Skanda staff scripture, and it was unable to help him improve any longer. It could help him become Jindan but could not help him cultivate into Yuanying. His fingers tightly gripped the Skanda staff. Because he was gripping with too much force, his fingers were white. No matter what, he had to take this Dhyana scripture. Only better Dhyana scriptures could help him become Yuanying. The Skanda staff in his hand suddenly paused and the copper rings hummed in unison. Among the Buddhist chanting was murderous intent. A divine light was discernible on Yuan Xian's face as he strode directly at Zhong Ru. As the flame seal armor appeared, Suemo felt the pressure instantly decrease. The Great Day Banded Flame was as powerful as expected and he released a breath. But he still had no idea how to defeat this 5-element fog shield. This 5-element fog shield had all 5 elements, was full of variations, and the other's forging abilities were clearly high, so there were likely many hidden abilities that he had not anticipated. Bone-crushing obscuring flash was proven to be ineffective, which meant that the fog in front of him was not an illusion. Then what was it? Suddenly recalling the formation power he had just detected, Suemo shook. Did this 5-element fog shield contain formation-like changes? The more he thought, the more likely it seemed. The 5 elements enhanced and subdued each other. In formation, there were countless methods that used the 5 elements. The fog was also intangible and could change shape as one willed. In terms of formations, it could add many variations. If that was the case, then this was really a big headache. With a slight investigation using his consciousness, Suemo's expression instantly became even uglier. The 5 types of fog seemed to be mixed together casually, but it hid an undecipherable pattern. And the other had used a secret method that caused these 5 types of fog to remain separate at times, or to merge together in unpredictable changes. Thinking about how the Great Day Banded Flame had just burned the fog, Suemo's eyes lit up. Maybe he could use the Great Day Banded Flame. The flame on his body burst out again. He charged towards the thickest part of the fog and heard hissing. The flame isn't bad. Pity that you are lacking. It is delusion to think you can defeat my 5-element fog shield with just this kind of move. Gu Minggong's cold voice came. He clearly was angry now. He had relaxed his guard momentarily and his 5-element fog shield had been slightly damaged. He treasured this talisman's and would feel great pain at any bit of damage. Suemo felt the scenery change and the 5-color fog around him became red fog. This kind of fog was red like fire and moved like sharks that smelt blood, furiously rushing at Suemo. Before he could react, a suction force came and the Great Day Banded Flame began to leave his body. Suemo was astounded. The red fog around the Great Day Banded Flame was so thick it was almost tangible. The attractive force had come from the red fog. Fire element fog. A formation. Suemo suddenly reacted and took back the Great Day Banded Flame. It had just been a moment, and half of his Great Day Banded Flame was gone. The fire element fog that absorbed the Great Day Banded Flame. Suemo was both shocked and felt pain in his heart. Such a powerful fog. Such a powerful formation. The other was so skilled it surpassed Suemo's imagination. The other was able to set up a fire-absorbing formation with the fog. Otherwise, no matter how powerful the fire element fog was, it could not absorb so much Great Day Banded Flame in such a short amount of time. He finally tasted the power of the other. As expected of the Seal Immortal. Before, Suemo had put all his thoughts on Ning-Yi and did not pay any attention on the other two. Now he understood that those with great fame were never insubstantial. Having rampaged in Blood Sky Metropolis Jia, Suemo had never expected that he would be continuously set back when he entered Cloud Sea Jia. This time, he found that he was once again put in a state of life and death, and he found he actually had no solutions. Last time, when he had been caught in the 1,000-gem illusory disc, the black gold seal soldier of Gu Xiang Tian had been great trouble for him and he almost died. Wait. Black gold seal soldier. A light flashed through Suemo's eyes. But thinking about that guy's wretched and lazy appearance, he felt this idea was unreliable. But he really had no other solutions that he could think of at this time. The Great Daimyo physique was powerful and few were a match, but the opponent's moves were countered and subdued the Great Daimyo physique. Other than this, he still had a killing move, Archaic Wasteland Sacrificial Art. While this move was extremely powerful, it expended a great amount of Ling power. If it was not at death's door, he definitely did not dare to use it. Without another words, he took out the black gold seal paper and channeled Ling power. No response. Thinking about the scene last time, the corners of Zhuo Mo's eyes jerked. Did this guy have to be hit to come out? Pia. He suddenly hit the paper seal on his hand. Born to battle. The lazy and drowsy voice sounded again. The black gold seal soldier appeared in front of Zhuo Mo looking at the dark golden features that were the same as his. Even in such a dangerous situation, Zhuo Mo felt his mind turn to a mess. Heavens, why did he put his hopes on such an unreliable person? Alright, since called one out, then he would let them all come out. Without another word, he took out all the beast service cards in his ring, and released them one after one. Qing Shidi had given them to him but he had never used them before. Fire-tailed fox, white light butterfly, black and white fork-tailed sparrow. You have a lot of knickknacks. Gu Minggong's snort of laughter came from above his head. Just this trash and you want them to save your life? Ha! Listen to this old man, let me capture you. Do not waste your effort on ineffective struggles, and this old man will keep you alive. Gu Minggong's voice was friendly and sincere. Zhuo Mo pretended not to hear it, and continuously let out the Ling beasts. After fighting for so long, Zhuo Mo had generally gotten the scope of the situation. The other's 5-element fog shield was powerful, but only in the area of formation variations. There was no problem in trapping him, but it would not be so simple if the other wanted to kill him. Understanding the situation, he calmed down. It was pity. If Lil Pagoda was here, that would be good. These 5-element fog would be great nutrients for it. He could only think of other ways now. He hoped that these Ling beasts would be enough to have an effect, at least they had numbers. A Ling beast army, this idea was pretty good. Zhuo Mo was slightly proud. His surroundings quickly filled with all kinds of Ling beasts that numbered more than 200. He had used all the beast service cards that Chun Yucheng had given him regardless of the grade. No one would be like him and release so many Ling beasts in one go. The more Ling beasts one released, the harder they were to control. Even a beast breeder like Chun Yucheng could not control several hundred Ling beasts in one go. But Zhuo Mo did not care that much right now. It was possible to see what a level he had been pressured into. What Zhuo Mo did not detect was a gleaming pair of eyes not far from him that was staring at the Ling beast army he put such high hopes on. And there was the sound of gurgling as this one swallowed. Chapter 467, Strong Offense. The sky was a fiery red as though storm of spells raining down had lit the air on fire. Tian Hengbo's expression was comparably ugly to the burning sky. Up until now, they hadn't broken through the island's protective formation. Thunder roiled within the Yinyang thunder cloud formation. Lightning occasionally flashed and the silver snakes curved with a frightening presence. But what caused people to feel hopeless was the azure energy that would occasionally appear. They didn't know what those azure energies were, but any spell that encountered the azure energy, no matter how powerful, would disappear. The Tian family started out as Ling plant farmers, but they had recruited a seal Xiu that was skilled in formations. But that seal Xiu's head was covered in sweat and his expression was distraught at this time. How much longer? Tian Hengbo felt impatient and his voice was murderous. He had never thought that Turtle Island was really a turtle, one that had retreated into its shell. A shell so hard it could break off people's teeth. They had been stopped right outside the formation. If they could not break through the defense of the formation, it would be a serious blow to their present high morale. What caused him even more fury was that Tian Yi had sent a message from the rear with the undisguised disdain. Tian Ye's personality was eccentric and had terrible relations with Tian Hengbo. Tian Hengbo found it hard to tolerate being laughed at by Tian Yi. I don't know. This female Xiu knew Tian Hengbo's fiery temper. She swallowed hard and tried to explain, this island has an expert in formations. The Yinyang Thunder Formation has been strengthened, and a lightning wood element has been added. There is also a very strange formation on the island that this subordinate has never seen before. This formation, in other words, there's no solution. Tian Hengbo stared at the Seal Xiu with a dark face. The heart of the Seal Xiu tightened. He stammered out, this subordinate needs 2 hours, no, 4 hours, whoosh. Energy flashed through the head of the Seal Xiu and blood streamed out. What is the use in keeping you? Tian Hengbo's voice was cold. He did not look at the corpse on the ground, turning and ordering, all of you, launch an all-out assault. Anyone that retreats will be killed without question. The people around him shook inside and responded in the affirmative. Battle Xiu flooded in behind them and encircled Turtle Island, preparing their spells together. Only one troop was stood out, staying motionless. That was Tian Yi Battalion. Tian Hengbo felt great hatred towards them but did not show it on his face. He ordered the other 2 elite battalions to attack at the same time. He resolved that he would take down Turtle Island no matter what. Otherwise, he would not be able to raise his head in front of Tian Yi in the future. To break a formation, other than deconstructing it, there was another method, a strong attack. In theory, when the attack was strong enough, any formation can be defeated. In a flash, numerous spells fell down. Ji Wei looked at the burning sky and praised, this meridional azure ether formation is truly strong. Darren is uncanny in ability to be able to comprehend such a formation. It is a sect-protecting formation. With this formation, Darren is able to create his own sect. Sun Bao said simply, he's a sect unto himself now. Ji Wei thought. That was true, there wasn't any difference between Darren and a sect right now. Zhua Mo did not conceal the meridional azure ether formation, and everyone in Golden Crow camp learned it and understood its wonders. But the more they understood, the more they felt how immeasurable Darren was. Because it was not easy for Zhua Mo to explain the origins of the Jade Scroll, he told them that he had comprehended it himself. Zhua Mo had just wanted to find an excuse, and hadn't expected to cause everyone's admiration. They did not know that the meridional azure ether formation had great origins. A formation that Pu Yao had held onto until now, could it be average? The spells rained down outside but the sky was clear and calm on the island. The formation that was already powerful grew in stronger under Lil Pagoda's control. Regardless of the bombardment, it was like the rock in the middle of the sea that remained unmovable. The 2 of them were not nervous at all. It wasn't just these 2, all the Shouja of Golden Crow camp had come to watch the spectacle and did not show any fear. Because near them the Sword Xiu of Vermilion Bird camp were waiting to attack. In the dark and cold mountain cave, Shu Long and the others stood around a black pond. Should we go out and help? Owen couldn't help asking. No need, they can deal with it. Shu Long's stern gaze was locked on the MO weapons floating in the pond. Beside him, everyone was anxious, afraid to breathe too harshly. After a while, the black pond started to bubble as though it was going to boil. Shu Long's expression became even more grave as he said in a deep voice, "Do you remember the method I just taught you?" Everyone nodded in unison. The MO weapons recognizes their owners, and all have their own good fortune. It is all right if you do not get one this time, but no one shall feel hate or envy. Shu Long's gaze swept across everyone. Ha, Brother Long is becoming more of a nag. What's there to hate? We're all brothers. The brothers that obtain MO weapons, you should go out and have a good run. Don't let Vermilion Bird Camp take the attention. That's right. I've been wanting that group of bird people to know the might of US Guard Camp. The competitive relationship between the 2 camps could be seen from the appellations. The Shouja of Guard Camp called Vermilion Bird Camp the Birdie Camp, and Vermilion Bird Camp Shouja referred to the Guard Camp as Manual Labor Camp. Once the words came out, they caused a chorus of agreement and excitement. They were always discontent that Vermilion Bird Camp frequently ranked first. Xu Long had an imperceptible smile on the corner of his mouth. He usually used this competitive relationship to motivate everyone to cultivate. It seems that the effects were good. The black pond suddenly quieted. All noise disappeared, and everyone looked at the black pond. The quieted black pond was like a glossy and smooth mirror without any ripples. At this time, Mo weapon silently floated onto the surface. A faint but intimidating and pure fiendish energy engulfed the cave without any warning. Every camp guard unconsciously stopped breathing, their eyes pulled towards the Mo weapon. This was a curved blade. The completely black blade did not have the least bit of sheen. It had an abnormal curvature and seemed to have an unusual power that captivated and held people's gazes. Mo weapons continuously floated onto the surface. The vicious fiendish energy in the cave increased in strength until it was almost tangible. Xu Long and the others felt this was unspeakably pleasurable. For Xiuzhe, this was undoubtedly pure toxic poison, but for them this vicious fiendish energy was like being immersed in a hot spring and extremely comfortable. No one moved even though their faces were full of excitement. They were waiting for Xu Long's command. Xu Long shouted, "Start." They then eagerly channeled the hardship guard. Killing essence filled the cave. Everyone had serious expressions, releasing as much killing essence as they could and were shrouded in tangible killing essence. The black mist of killing essence seemed to give off an inviting scent. The Mo weapons that were inside the black pool were attracted and started to shake. The peaceful black pool was instantly disrupted. Mo weapons chose their masters. For all the hardship guards including Xu Long, this was a very novel matter. They didn't even have a general concept of Mo weapons but they knew this could make them strong. Make them more powerful. That was enough. For these hardship guards that were once slave Shio, following Darren was their own goal in life. Yet they found their combat capabilities was inferior to Vermilion Bird Camp and the effect they could cause with their strength was limited. For this group of people, that lived to follow Mo, being unable to show their usefulness was even more depressing and uncomfortable than death. Each of them channeled their Mo skill to the max. Their eyes held determination that had gone through hardship. Ning Yi looked greedily at Wei Sheng. Such an extreme soul. He could smell the purity of this soul, it was so intoxicating. A masterpiece of heaven. Ning Yi licked his lips, his long and narrow eyes showing undisguised excitement. Wei Sheng did not speak. He could feel the other's great power, the terrifying presence and especially the vicious energy coming from the bloody umbrella in the other's hand that made him feel as though he was in hell. But he did not waver. He never felt fear because of the strength of an enemy. Not in the past, not now, and would not in the future. He was Wei Sheng, the one that always went forward. Wei Sheng. He looked without fear at the other. Battle intent in his eyes was like sword essence exploding. Only people that were familiar with him would notice a change, he had entered a battle state. The black sword in his hand raised and pointed straight at the other. Why do you uselessly struggle? Ning Yi shook his head and smiled slightly as though he was watching a pet play around. Boom! Vast sword essence was like the volcano breaking through the last layer of restraints, exploding into the sky. The space 3 zhang around Wei Sheng seemed to collapse inwards and showed unnatural curvature. The more Ning Yi watched, the more he liked it. Not bad, not bad. A very good seed, good seed. So young and having cultivated sword essence to such a level, you did not waste your soul. An Azura wielding the sword, I like this one. Suddenly, Ning Yi laughed. Why should I waste so many words on you? The mirth at the corner of his lips rose, and his gaze suddenly became vicious. Die. Before the sound landed, the blood fiend Azura umbrella in his hand suddenly snapped open and floated over Ning Yi's head. The blood fiend Azura umbrella slowly spun, releasing a red light and shielding Ning Yi in the middle. A beam of bloody red light that carried a nauseating tang of blood shot at Wei Sheng. Wei Xing felt a feeling of extreme danger. Without hesitating, the black sword in his hand struck forth. The space in front of Wei Xing was torn apart by this strike. There was a black void inside that was unknown. The blood light was stopped by this strike. Not bad. Ningyi snorted coldly. But this is not enough. The blood fiend Azura umbrella spun faster, the bloody light increasing in strength and the nauseating tang of iron growing. What was even more terrifying was that tear in the space was being slowly pressed closed by the bloody light. Chapter 468, Damn it, 200 Ling beasts crouched around Zuemo. They were extremely quiet and did not make any sounds. The sound of the black gold seal soldier swallowing was clear to hear. Zuemo's temples throbbed as he turned around with an unfriendly expression. He saw the black gold seal soldier look yearningly at the Ling beast with a desirous and greedy gaze. He did not notice that Zuemo was staring at him, his dark gold Adam's apple bobbing. He was clearly swallowing rapidly. Seeing its wretched state, Zuemo felt a burning anger. You wasted so many of GE's good materials. Wasted so much of GE's emotions. Wasted so much of GE's time. Made GE be happy for nothing. You. Terrible history. Innumerable crimes. Just as Zuemo's anger was about to erupt, the black gold seal soldier suddenly turned his face around, pointing at the Ling beasts and asking weakly, "They look so delicious, can I eat one?" Eat. Zuemo's expression instantly darkened. The corners of his eyes continuously jerked and it was like pouring oil onto the hot anger in his chest. But he suppressed the anger and gritted out, "If you can defeat this 5-element fog shield, you can eat all of them. If you can't," before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by the cheer of the black gold seal soldier. Really? The black gold seal soldier's eyes lit up and the gulping sounds increased in volume. He completely disregarded Zuemo's furious gaze, turning his face and suddenly opening his mouth to face the 5-colored fog. He suddenly sucked in. Hiss. A shocking scene occurred. The 5-element fog that covered the sky flew straight at the black gold seal soldier's mouth. His mouth was like a bottomless hole. The 5-colored fog flooded in furiously like a whale sucking in water. You dare! Petrified from shock, Zuemo heard the shocked and furious shout of Gu Minggong come from above his head. The fog twisted violently, but no matter how it changed, it seemed to be caught tightly by a powerful and invisible hand, unable to escape. Gu Minggong's expression changed greatly. He found that no matter how he channeled the 5-element fog shield, he was unable to escape from this strong suction. In a blink, he actually felt that he was losing control of the 5-element fog shield. This was not possible. Gu Minggong's face was ashen and he felt ice cold. His eyes were full of terror and disbelief. He had spent great effort on forging his 5-element fog shield, and used a whole decade to forge this talisman. From the day it was forged, it was connected to his mind and was almost a part of his body. There never had been a situation where he could not control it. When his connection with the 5-element fog shield started to disappear, he was unable to suppress the terror and hopelessness. Blood climbed into his eyes. He furiously channeled Ling power to drag back the 5-element fog shield. Yet everything was futile. No matter how he channeled Ling power, no matter what spells he released, the 5-element fog shield was still being sucked at a speed that made him hopeless into the mouth of that ghastly thing. What was that thing? He looked with bloodshot eyes at the dark golden black gold seal soldier like a gambler that had just lost everything. Zuemo was dumbstruck as he looked at the space around him that was emptied as though he was dreaming. This. The last thread of 5-element fog was sucked into the mouth of the black gold seal soldier. His face was twisted as though he had eaten citrus peel. But when he turned around and looked at the Ling beasts, he instantly turned into smiles. Without a second word, he opened his mouth and sucked again. Like dumplings going into the pot, the Ling beasts flew one after the last into his mouth. In a blink, the 200 Ling beasts were cleared out. The black gold seal soldier showed a contented expression, gave a burp and then a yawn. With drowsy eyes, he waved at Suemo, "Big bro, I'm so drowsy, going to sleep." He disappeared with a snap right after. Suemo had not recovered from his shock. Everything that just happened gave him a great blow to his confidence. The 5-element fog shield was the most powerful talisman he had ever seen, and was even more powerful than the 9-turn sky-earth disc. Adding on that Gu Ming Gong was also very powerful. It was an extremely strong trap, and was not something that the present Mo could face. He had realized this before. The 5-element fog shield contained all 5 elements and was full of transformations. Gu Ming Gong was also skilled in formations and had added many formation transformations, so it was even more wondrous. Mo was certain that Gu Ming Gong still had many killing moves he had not used yet. How could the 5-element fog shield only have just these few changes? But the shock that the black gold seal soldier gave Mo had not faded. Thinking about the wretched black gold seal soldier, Mo felt as though he had seen a ghost. The 5-element fog shield was a top 6th grade talismans. It had been defeated by this guy in an instant. Was this a joke? The entire situation reversed so abruptly it was hard to accept. In Zhuomo's sea of consciousness, Pu Yao and Wei were also greatly shocked by the black gold seal soldier and were robbed of speech momentarily. "Give me my 5-element fog shield." Zhuomo shook at Gu Ming Gong, but he instantly reacted and looked maliciously at Gu Ming Gong. That heart-wrenching cry of fury only drew attention to Gu Ming Gong. Without the 5-element fog shield, Gu Ming Gong in Zhuomo's eyes was a chicken plucked of all feathers. He also felt a similar feeling that the black gold seal soldier had felt when looking at the Ling beasts. Beautifully fat. Clang! The Skanda staff in Yuan Xian's hand accurately struck a golden character. The golden character instantly turned to dots of golden light. But there was no satisfaction on Yuan Xian's face, only wariness. He had originally assumed that since the other was so young, even with a profound dhyana scripture, the other would not be a match for him. But in these rounds of fighting, the other was not at a disadvantage in the least. Yuan Xian's eyes stared at the crossed prayer wheel in Zhong Ru's hands, and his pupils couldn't help but contract. His heart was instantly taken over by jealousy. The Skanda staff in his hand was not ordinary but was lacking compared to the other's prayer wheel. A profound dhyana scripture, a powerful talisman, they are all mine. With a large shout, Yuan Xian's Skanda staff suddenly exploded with light, the copper rings chimed rapidly. Circles of golden light flew at Zhong Ru. Zhong Ru did not dare to underestimate them. This dhyana Shio had deeper cultivation than him, and should be Jindan 3rd stratum. His cultivation was so deep it surpassed Zhong Ru's imagination. The crossed prayer wheel shook slightly, sutra characters lighting up, falling and flying towards the golden circles of light. Pop pop pop. When they neared the golden circles of light, the sutra characters could not tolerate the enormous pressure and exploded into light. The terrifying pressure flooded towards Zhong Ru. The other had caught onto his shortcomings, his cultivation, and had decided to use the difference in cultivation to beat him down. Zhong Ru's expression was serious. If the other used this almost savage and primitive method, he did not have many good solutions. When the difference in power reached a certain degree, the advantages in other areas could not provide much help. Zhong Ru's days as a Jindan were short and he had not even touched the peak of 1st stratum. Compared to the other's peak of 3rd stratum cultivation, his was greatly lacking. The two were only 2 stratums apart, but the cultivation difference between the two was more than 10 times. It was, one on the earth, and one in heaven. So when Yuan Xian decided to use Ling power to defeat him, Zhong Ru instantly sank into a dangerous situation. Even though he had a 6th grade talisman like the crossed prayer wheel, he could not stop Yuan Xian's attack. It was a pity. If he had forged the crossed prayer wheel more to his wishes, he might have been able to stop these rings of light. Zhong Ru sighed inside, put away the crossed prayer wheel and put his palms together. Boom! A shadow about 3 zhang appeared behind him with 3 heads and 6 arms. It was the attainment golden body. The attainment Buddha opened one palm and grabbed one of the rings of light. Pia! The ring of light was crushed and the hand of the attainment Buddha was also turned to powder. Yuan Xian's eyes instantly became heated. He looked greedily at the enormous shadow that almost covered Zhong Ru. He felt enormous power from this shadow. If he could also cultivate this dhyana scripture. Unhesitatingly, he poured the Ling power in his body into the Skanda staff. Wei Sheng was very disheveled. It had been a long time since he was pushed so far. After becoming Jindan, his sword essence increased greatly by the day as though every barrier was fragile in front of him. It was today when he encountered Ning Yi that he felt the difference between him and truly powerful experts. Compared to the 3 Ren family elders, Ning Yi was a Xiuzha of a different level. In cultivation, Ning Yi's peak of 3rd stratum cultivation was 9 times that of Wei Sheng. It was only this small because Wei Sheng's progress was far beyond normal people and he had reached the peak of 1st stratum in this short period. In terms of talismans, the blood light that Ning Yi's blood fiend Azura umbrella produced was enough to push Wei Sheng back continuously. Even in terms of battle experience, Ning Yi was far beyond Wei Sheng. From the beginning, Wei Sheng was suppressed on all fields. The sword essence that he was always proud of was completely suppressed by the blood light released by the blood fiend Azura umbrella. He didn't know what the blood fiend Azura umbrella was made out of. It was even able to corrode the void. Wei Sheng had not had the advantage once. He didn't even had the chance to attack back. He knew that the other did not use all his might. Otherwise, he would have died already. Was this a game of cat and mouse? He didn't know. He only had one though in his mind: sword strike. Sword strike. Sword strike. Every one of his sword energies was a line of defense. Even though it could only stop the blood light for a minuscule amount of time, but he could only continuously release sword essence. One sword after the next to snatch a bit of time for himself. The nauseating tang of blood burrowed into his nose as though it was constantly reminding him death was so close. His Ling power was being consumed at shocking speed. Wei Sheng quickly felt the burden. Ning Yi's eyes floated with insuppressible excitement. The conditions were about right. Ning Yi did not want to leave any flaw on such a perfect soul. He purposefully held his power back in order to press Wei Sheng to his limits. A soul at its limits would become more powerful and the Azura forged would be stronger. The time he had dreamt about appeared. Even a vicious person like Ning Yi couldn't help but feel excited. The blood fiend Azura umbrella suddenly brightened with its bloody light. Already at the end of his strength, the last bit of sword essence in front of Wei Sheng collapsed like fragile glass. The blood light broke through the last line of defense and struck the black sword in Wei Sheng's hand. At this time, a change suddenly occurred. This black sword that came with Wei Sheng from the sealed extinction battlefield seemed to be awoken from its deep slumber. Chapter 469, Abrupt Turnaround. The bloody light released by the blood fiend Azura umbrella was pulled by the black sword. In an instant, the black sword, which looked like a horse-chopping saber, had turned completely red as though it was fresh from the forge. Countless fine sword essences simultaneously exploded from the hilt of the sword. Unprepared for the change, Wei Sheng's hands were cut up by the large numbers of sword essences. The numerous small wounds had turned his hands into a mess of blood and flesh. Wei Sheng made a muffled grunt. He knew that he definitely could not let go of the sword hilt right now. He didn't let go, and gathered his remaining power to tightly grip the sword hilt. Large amounts of blood flowed from Wei Sheng's cut-up palms. The entire sword hilt was quickly seeped in blood. The scene that followed looked extremely eerie. The sword hilt covered in fresh blood suddenly soaked up the blood like a sponge. Pangs of heart-boring pain burrowed starting at his hands into Wei Xing's body. Wei Xing felt his mind go blank. With Ning Yi's battle experience he detected something was wrong the moment the black sword changed colors. However, he was only shocked for a moment before recovering his calm. Who didn't have one or two life-saving moves? The difference in power between the Wei Xing and himself was so great that one or two ultimate moves could not change the outcome. He did not hesitate in channeling Ling power into the blood fiend Azura umbrella. The bloody light grew and the tang of blood in the air became even more nauseating. The bloody light that the blood fiend Azura umbrella released was keen and corrupt. It was a great toxin for talismans and flying swords. An unknown number of talismans had been ruined by the umbrella. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. Time quickly slipped away, 10 whole breaths passed but nothing changed at all. Ning Yi's expression became slightly ugly. Under his Ling power, the bloody light had become so thick it was appeared to be a bloody waterfall. Yet no matter how intense the bloody light became, that black sword did not react at all. Even Wei Xing, who had been wavering on the brink of collapse, was still standing. A bad feeling rose in Ning Yi's mind. He decided to attack at full power to prevent something unexpected from happening. If the cooked duck managed to flew away, then he would really regret it. Just at this time, he suddenly looked and saw Wei Xing's eyes. He couldn't help but freeze. Wei Xing's eyes were empty and had no focus or vitality. Being stared at by such a pair of eyes, even a person as vicious as Ning Yi couldn't help but feel his hairs rise. Suddenly, Wei Xing took on an extremely strange posture, his body arched and arm raised like a scorpion that had raised its tail. Ning Yi's heart suddenly jumped, his expression changing. Not good. Before he could react, he saw Wei Xing stab lightly at the empty space between them. There was no wind, no light, it seemed like a very gentle and weak stab. Pew! The blood light that was as thick as a waterfall was effortlessly cut in two by this gentle and weak stab. The sword presence penetrated the bloody light, striking one of the umbrella ribs. Pia, the rib that was struck snapped in two. Ning Yi was both shocked and furious. Each umbrella rib of the blood fiend Azura umbrella was forged from the whale bone, from the Yinling whale that he had delved deep into the cloud sea to hunt. Each bone was as hard as metal and was difficult to damage with flying swords. After being immersed in the 100 grievance blood fiend for hundreds of days, each of them was strengthened and was unable to be damaged with flying swords. If his blood fiend Azura umbrella was cultivated into its complete form and formed its own world, then these 13 umbrella ribs would become the pillars that held up this world. How could such hard umbrella ribs be broken so easily? And by a little youth that was in Jindan first stratum with a single sword strike. What Ning Yi found even hard to accept was that youth had just been his prey. The black sword. It was the fault of the black sword. Ning Yi stared hard at the black sword in Wei Xing's hands, green and white mixing on his face. His eyes carried deep hatred and viciousness but also a deep terror. The blood fiend Azura umbrella was his life. When this umbrella rib was broken, its power was greatly reduced. Repair was an extremely difficult matter. In the past, he had used all 13 whale bones of the Yinling whale that had obtained on this umbrella and had not kept even one in reserve. It had been good fortune that he was able to kill the Yinling whale. Where was he going to find the Yinling whale now? What made his heart bleed even more blood was Wei Xing's soul. Such a perfect soul was even more valuable than the umbrella rib. What was the origin of that black sword? That strike just now had been silent, but the black sword strike still gave Ning Yi, a ruthless and vicious individual, a sense of foreboding from the viciousness and fiendishness essence released in that silence. Wei Xing's empty pupils stared at Ning Yi. For some unknown reason, Ning Yi felt unnameable terror. Suddenly, the black sword in Wei Xing's hand shook lightly. Ning Yi's pupil suddenly shrank and the fear in him rose. He turned to a ball of bloody light and, without hesitating, disappeared into the horizon. Turtle Island. Just you wait. If I do not avenge myself, I, Ning Yi, will not be able to look at myself. A moment later, Wei Xing fell face first like a block of wood and fell unconscious. The black sword flipped through the air and silently floated next to Wei Xing. Even while unconsciousness, Wei Xing seemed to be supported by an invisible power and did not fall into the cloud sea. Pia. The last arm of the attainment Buddha and a ring of golden light collided together and exploded. The shadow behind Zhong Ru was finally unable to withstand the barrage, and after a burst of violent trembling, it disappeared. Zhong Ru's body shook and his face was slightly white. Yuan Xian laughed viciously. He suddenly breathed, the skanda staff in his hand shining as he threw it out. The skanda staff suddenly grew exponentially and like a black shadow, it howled intimidatingly as it smashed towards Zhong Ru. Just as Zhong Ru was going to be struck to death, a rainbow sword energy suddenly flew out. The rainbow sword energy was like a soft rainbow-colored ribbon and wrapped around the skanda staff in the air. Xia Shan. Pew pew pew. The light released by the skanda staff seemed to be slowly corroded and weakened. The size of the skanda staff also decreased slowly. Yuan Xian's expression did not change and still smiled viciously. His skanda staff was forged from the yellow copper essence extracted from deep underground. Even though it was lacking compared to that prayer wheel, it was unusually heavy. His throw seemed casual but it was actually extremely famed skill and called the skanda throw. The presence was heavy, like a mountain pressing down and the other would be unable to escape. The other wanted to dissipate the power of this staff with that little bit of sword essence. That was a delusion. Yuan Xian did not look at the skanda staff, just stared at Zhong Ru and waited for him to be killed. He could then take the jade scroll and the prayer wheel before he would escape the battlefield. With the jade scroll and prayer wheel, that little bit of jingshi he was offered was insignificant. Once he had these two items, he would immediately find a remote and secret place, go into seclusion to cultivate and break through into Yuanying. Xia Shan saw his sword essence was unable to stop the skanda staff. His expression changed. The situation was dangerous, he could not attend to anything else. All the Ling power in his body was channeled towards the paired mirage swords in his hands. Xia Shan's cultivation was the highest of the four on their side. This explosion of Ling energy, that did not keep anything back, was extraordinarily powerful. A handful of multicolored sword energies appeared in Xia Shan's hands, each as thin as silk threads. These sword energies that were in the thousands as they flew at the skanda staff. The moment they came into contact with the staff, they suddenly turned soft and wrapped around the staff. Xia Shan glared angrily and breathed out, "Go away." His hand made a grab motion and pulled back. The sword energies that were in the thousands grew in intensity. In this instant, the seven-colored light enshrouded the golden light released by the skanda staff. The skanda staff was pulled askew by a thread to the side, brushing by Zhong Ru's body and falling into the deep cloud sea underneath. A thread of shock flashed through Yuan Xian's eyes. He hadn't expected the other was able to save Zhong Ru. However, a cold smile came onto his mouth. That sword Xiu's figure was wavering and unable to stand steady. He clearly had used up all his Ling power to avert that attack. Zhong Ru's expression was also pale white, and was also at the end of his strength. Without a word, with a great step he appeared in front of Zhong Ru and reached out a hand to grab Zhong Ru. Pia. The blue soul cold light armor instantly shattered. Zhong Ru struggled to raise an arm and met Yuan Xian's blow. Crack. Zhong Ru's arm broke. Yuan Xian showed a disdainful expression. In his eyes, Zhong Ru was just making his last struggle before death. He prepared the killing move when his expression suddenly changed. Wish power. Like he was bitten by a poisonous snake, his eyes instantly filled with terror, his voice was hoarse and trembling. Gray-white color was like an enchanting vine that spread to his neck. Zhong Ru managed a smile, the blood lotus on his head beautiful and glistening. Compared to Zhong Ru, Wei Sheng and Xia Shan, Zhuo Mo's battle was the extreme opposite and had gone smoothly. The black gold seal soldier's strange suction had defeated the 5-element fog shield that Zhuo Mo was helpless against. The balance of victory had started to tilt toward Zhuo Mo. A seal Xiu that lost their most powerful talisman was left to a tragic fate when facing the great Daimo physique, which had shocking speed and power. Especially with Zhuo Mo's physical way of fighting. The rapid speed caused Gu Minggong to be in a disheveled state. If it wasn't that he had several good talismans on him, he would have been beaten swollen by Zhuo Mo. However, he wasn't much better off right now. When his last talisman was split in half by Zhuo Mo's midday blade, his face as ashen, he didn't even have a way to escape. His speed was far slower than Zhuo Mo, and what made him even more hopeless was that Zhuo Mo was in a frenzy. The barrage of attacks didn't give him a chance to breathe at all. He didn't have the time to grieve over his 5-element fog shield. No matter how good the talisman was, if it was gone, he could forge another one, but if he lost his little life, then he wouldn't have anything. He only needed a span of 5 breaths and he could escape. He had a transportation seal which connected to the transportation formation in his residence. If he used it, he could return to his residence. As a seal Xiu, transportation seals were something that they used as lifesavers. How could he forget one? Yet the other didn't even give him a time of 5 breaths. He used all his moves, feints, swindling, conning to try to drag out the time. But the other didn't reply to his words, only charging and killing as though the other held a great grievance against him. Gu Minggong wanted to cry. The one that lost his talisman was clearly himself, the one disheveled was clearly him, but why did the other still look so furious? But how could he know that as Zhuo Mo fought, he recalled the 200 ling beasts he lost? The pain Zhuo Mo felt was naturally blamed on Gu Minggong. If Gu Minggong's cultivation wasn't so much stronger than his opponent, he would not have managed to survive until now. This person was young, but he was experienced, as sly as a fox. His life would end here today. His ling power fading, Gu Minggong's thoughts ended. At this time, a hand gripped his throat. Chapter 470, Lilth Misorder. Feng Shixiang is well informed. Do you recognize this formation? Li Shu looked from a distance at Turtle Island and said quietly. Beside him was a middle-aged person named Feng Bao. Astonishment showed on his face. It seems a bit like the meridional azure ether formation of Azure Sky Sect. Is Turtle Island owned by a disciple of Azure Sky Sect? Azure Sky Sect. Azure Sky is a powerful seal cultivator sect that is very powerful in Black Knight Jie. They do not have many disciples, but they are most skilled in forging and seal creating, so the sect is extremely rich. What is most wondrous about Azure Sky Sect is the sect-protecting formation, called the Meridional Azure Ether Formation. It is extremely powerful, Feng Bai explained. Black Knight Jie. Li Shu was slightly shocked. So far away. Very very far. Feng Bai nodded. Why did they run to Cloud Sea Jie? Li Shu's brow creased. I do not know that. Feng Bai smiled and said, what is Shitty worried about? According to what I know, the disciples of Azure Sky Sect are skilled in forging and seals, but they are peaceful and rarely enter conflicts against others. Then it's strange, Li Shu said as he shook his head. Shixiang may not know this, while these people from Turtle Island do not cause conflicts, they are not peaceful people. Their moves are vicious and decisive, and the battalion they have are clearly veterans that have been on the battlefield. They would be hard to deal with. There's something like that? Feng Bao said in wonder, then I wouldn't know. Azure Sky Sect is too distant from us. It would require several years to go and investigate. I had only seen accounts of this formation by coincidence. Li Shu seemed to be pondering something and did not speak. Sounds of violent explosions came from Turtle Island occasionally, the lights of all kinds of spells illuminating the sky. The Tian family's explosive barrage of attacks was still continuing. Suddenly, Feng Bao made a light sound. The formation has been penetrated? Li Shu woke up with shock and looked over. The Tian family battalions that had been packed in the sky above Turtle Island were flowing furiously towards Turtle Island. Had the formation of Turtle Island fallen? What? Ma Fan thought that he had heard it wrong. Beside him, Lei Peng, Nian Lu and the others were frozen on their spots. Didn't hear clearly. I said you can solve this problem yourselves. Gong Sun Cha showed a harmless smile. You have the ability to solve a battle of this level by yourselves. Finishing, he shrugged, spread his hands, and looked away at ease. Ma Fan instantly became frantic. His first response was, damn it, which dumbass had offended Lil Miss? Dragging everyone down to feel the pain. It wasn't the first time something like this occurred. Once someone caused Lil Miss to show this demonic smile, what would follow would cause the Vermilion Bird Camp to be tormented together. When it was serious, even Guard Camp was unable to avoid the calamity. Darren. This is not possible. Ma Fan lowered his voice and said fawningly, without you, we are blind. You are the bright light in the middle of the great sea, our helmsman, only on your hands can we express our greatest power. You are our spine, we can lack anyone but how can we lack you? Even Boss has said you are a gold battle general. Lil Miss smiled slightly bashfully as though he was embarrassed at hearing Ma Fan's undisguised flattery, yet Ma Fan and the others instantly had a foreboding feeling. Your flattery is slightly sickening but mostly truth. Lil Miss smiled bashfully. Yes. The foreboding feeling increased but Ma Fan and the others hurriedly nodded in agreement. But I am a gold battle general, that Tian family, at most it is a silver battle general, it is worth of my attention. Lil Miss smiled brightly, his face like a flower and showed 2 rows of white teeth. You have stayed with me for this long, if you can't even kill a silver battle general, then you might as well cut your own necks. Lil Miss smiled prettily again and everyone felt their backs dampen with cold sweat. I'm not joking. So Lil Miss really wasn't joking. Stumbling and crawling out of Lil Miss' place, everyone huddled together and started to discuss. No way, Lil Miss wants to play us to death. Someone wailed. Don't cry, think of a solution. If we really can't kill the Tian family, wait for it, if we don't cut our own necks, Lil Miss will hand us the blade. Or he might just snap it, that is also possible. Hazy motioned. Everyone shuddered in unison. Even a fearless person like Lei Peng was slightly white. Especially when the scene of Lil Miss holding a blade as he smiled shyly appeared in their minds. Uncontrollably, they all shook again. Brothers. If the Tian family doesn't die, then we will die. A brother's face was full of grief and excitement. Kill the Tian family. Kill them. Kill them. Everyone's eyes were red as their voices almost blew off the roof of the building. When the noise quieted, Lei Peng's voice rumbled, Old Fan, Iran, you two have the most ideas, quick, think of something. The other people looked at Ma Fan and Wei Ran. In the eyes of everyone, these two were the best at strategizing in Vermilion Bird Camp. Ma Fan had been the core before and with his personality preferred to use his cunning rather than his blade. Wei Ran was not as smart as Ma Fan, but he was a reliable person that was widely trusted. The first to speak was Wei Ran. He said in a low voice, it is not enough to complete this with just our Vermilion Bird Camp. Defeating them is easy, but Lil Miss wants is to kill them. This is slightly difficult. Most importantly, we cannot let any of them escape. Ma Fan's eyes lit up, why don't we use a bolt the door to beat the dog tactic? Bolt the door to beat the dog. We'll let them in and then close the formation of the island. This way, they cannot escape. Ma Fan's eyes were bright. This idea is good. Wei Ran clapped his hands in excitement. The other people also showed excitement. All of them had lots of battle experience, but none of them had experienced being in charge before. Someone quickly added, then we have to be careful, if the defeated battle Xiu of the Tian family damages the Ling fields of the island, yes. Lil Miss is not good to offend, and we can't touch boss. If boss comes back and sees serious damage, then we won't have a good outcome either. We need to have enough manpower. It seems that we really have to ask guard camp for help. Let's do this. Shu Long caressed the great black halberd in his hand. This great black halberd was even larger than the one he had formed from killing essence, and its shape was simpler. There was only a single spike that was shaped like a bird's head, and a dark red blade seemed to have been dyed in fresh blood. What was most eerie was the design, a blue-gray eye on the head of the halberd. From a distance, it looked like a black crow standing on top of a black stick. An intoxicated smile floated onto Shu Long's face as he gripped it in his hands. A feeling of intimacy came from the body of the halberd and made him feel as though it was his flesh and blood. All of the MO weapons in the Black Pond had used totem fragments. Each MO weapon seemed to be alive and caused each of them to have an unique presence. But the presence of the MO weapons were not like the intelligent presences of the talismans and flying swords, but were vicious and dark. It was possible to see their viciousness at a glance. The presence of the black halberd in Shu Long's hands was the most unique. There was no viciousness, just a barely discernible desolate presence. It may be due to fate that a one received a MO weapon that was identical to the one he had formed from killing essence. It was a dark green spear. The body of the spear was streamlined and etched with complex patterns which made it feel comfortable in the hand. The shape of the green spear was unique. The spear was shaped like a ruler-straight green snake, and the head of the spear reached out of the snake's jaw. The eyes of the snake were eerily open. All 300 Mo weapons had chosen their masters. The remaining people could only wait for a future round of forging. At the beginning, people were uncaring because no one had seen MO weapons before, but after the MO weapons came out, everyone had jealous eyes. Each MO weapon was like a piece of art, simple or exquisite, they all caused people's hearts to move. Shu Long raised his head. He saw every person that received a MO weapon were caressing their MO weapons in intoxication. He smiled imperceptibly and then he hid away his smile under a serious expression. Just now, Ma Fan had sent a message explaining the situation outside and also describing their plan. Shu Long did not know why Lil, Miss Darren did not act, but he knew that since Lil, Miss Darren sent down the order, it could not be changed. Lil Miss Darren rarely directed guard camp directly, but that did not lessen his authority or legitimacy of his orders. He did not learn battle tactics from Lil Miss Darren, and was instead taught by that mysterious person. He did not have any objections to Ma Fan's plan. This plan was actually very good. Okay, clean up and prepare to go. Let them see the power of our guard camp. Shu Long's voice spread into the entire mountain cave. His voice was full of bravado. Receiving the MO weapons, guard camp were like tigers that had wings. The large formation in front of them had suddenly opened, the fertile turtle island was like an inviting female, with legs spread in front of them. Tian Hengbo was full of joy. His already bloodshot eyes murderous as he shouted, "Kill!" The 6 Jindan changed out at the front. The 2 battalions behind them seemed full of adrenaline as they furiously howled and charged with vicious expressions. They feared being slower than the others. The Tian family was like a flood bursting the dam, unable to be stopped. Ling fields appeared in everyone's vision as though they were able to reach out and touch them. Everyone couldn't help but become excited. These Ling fields were going to belong to the Tian family. Possessing Turtle Island, the Tian family would become even stronger. And the service they provided in this battle would allow them to receive enough benefits. No one could stop them. In reality, their breakthrough was unusually smooth. They did not encounter any resistance along the way. No, they did not encounter one person. Wait. The corner of Tian Hengbo's eyes jumped and his expression changed slightly. They didn't encounter one person. Where were the people? At this moment, he saw something out of the corner of his eye. He stilled slightly and hurriedly turned around his face. In this moment, his pupils suddenly contracted and the blood drained from his face. Chapter 471, Perfect Execution. The sharp howls were like the wails of ghosts that tore through the air. The hum unique to the 3-section wave-killing charge caused people's scalps to tingle. The dense pack of sword shio were like a barrage of arrows that charged out. They struck as quick as lightning. Tian Hengbo paled greatly. He opened his mouth and wanted to remind everyone, but before he could make a sound, the sword shio of Turtle Island had reached them. Bam! Nearby a Tian family disciple's Ling armor shattered into countless pieces. The sword energy flashed across this disciple's neck with its remaining power, like a knife slicing tofu. A head flew into the sky. Tian Hengbo even saw the shock on the face of the Tian family disciple. Pia pia pia. Caught off guard, the combat shio of the Tian family were struck by the sword lights. The third-grade Ling armor they wore was as fragile as papier-mâché in front of the other's sharp sword energies and shattered, blood to spray everywhere. In what seemed like a blink of the eye, hundreds of Tian family disciples were slaughtered by the sword lights. The troops instantly became chaotic. The other was like a burning blade slicing through butter and created a vast corridor of blood among the ranks of the Tian family. In this bloody passage of 20 zhang wide, the blood and flesh of the Tian family disciples sprayed and they all died standing where they were. Seeing the Tian family disciples die in front of him, Tian Hengbo's eyes filled with blood. The murderousness and viciousness in his chest was like a burning flame. Kill them. He seemed like furious lion that charged first at the sword shio. The other 5 Jindan beside him also let out angry shouts at the same time and charged with Tian Hengbo. In this chaotic battlefield, the 6 Jindan were like 6 dazzling suns. The presence they gave off was intimidating and the presence of the 6 together overtook the Turtle Island sword shio. The disciples of the Tian family roared. Their morale that had been dampened by the sudden assault by Ma Fan's group, now rose. The 6 Jindan were like 6 sharp arrows that were unstoppable. The other combat shio followed behind them, forming 6 streams that leapt at Ma Fan's group. The expressions of Ma Fan and the others changed slightly. They hadn't expected the other to have deployed 6 Jindan. For the present Turtle Island, 6 Jindan was enough to be fatal. If it was only the 6 Jindan, then he wasn't afraid. Their strength was enough to grind the Jindan to death. But the Jindan had so many normal combat shio as well, and these 6 Jindan were fearlessly charging at the very front. The situation had become troublesome. Ma Fan and the others knew if they allowed the other Jindan to charge like this, the other side would be in a frenzy. Even if they won, their side would be wounded heavily. But Darren and the others were not here. Wei Ran was the one best at maintaining his composure. Even though the situation was extremely urgent, his voice did not change at all. Withdraw inwards. Stretch the distance between their forces. Everyone was quick-witted, instantly reacting. They did not fight, instead they turned and ran into the island. Seeing the Turtle Island sword shio running away, the morale of the Tian family combat increased and they howled as they chased. The fierce blow that they had just suffered was forgotten and all of them showed extreme excitement. One side was furiously feeling, and the other was furious pursuing. No one noticed that below them, a pair of eyes that flashed with purple energy and a vicious large bird was watching them. Ma Fan and the others were exceptionally fast. As the troop that had followed Zhuemo the longest, retreat and escape was a class they had to take. In the past, when Zhuemo and the other Jindan were present, they would help get rid of the Jindan, so Ma Fan and the others did not have many opportunities to face the Jindan head-on. Having 6 Jindan on their tail for the first time, they put all of their energy into running. Their sword lights were even faster than when they had just charged. But the other was still tightly following behind them, especially the 6 Jindan, who were quickly closing the distance between them. The 6 Jindan gradually separated from the combat Xiu, but this distance was not enough. If they turned around and charged now, then they would be entangled in battle with the Jindan, and the combat Xiu would charge and tear them apart. Kill Jindan first. All divisions, spread out. Lead them out and circle around, ensure they pull away from all the damned cannon fodder. Ma Fan gritted out. The teamwork between these people showed at this time. The entire troop suddenly scattered like a flower blooming. This time, the Tian family combat Xiu were stunned. Who do they chase? Tian Hengbo's eyes were filled with blood as he chased the people at the very front. They looked like the leaders. Those sword Xiu had the highest cultivation of those he saw and should be the leaders of this group. The Jindan beside him hesitated and charged with Tian Hengbo. Tian Hengbo was Tian Yongqing's full-blooded brother, and ensuring Tian Hengbo's safety was one of their duties. The Tian family disciples behind them lacked orders and their ranks instantly became a mess. Many people scattered into small groups to chase the Turtle Island sword Xiu that were fleeing. The sky about Turtle Island instantly became a mess. Idiot! Tian Yi, who had not charged into Turtle Island, couldn't help but curse. He wasn't on good terms with Tian Hengbo. In his eyes, Tian Hengbo was a brute with courage but had no cunning. What made him the most discontent was that Tian Yongqing had assigned 6 Jindan to Tian Hengbo. His battalion only had 2 Jindan. This was something that the prideful Tian Yi could not accept. After swearing, Tian Yi smiled coldly and did not move. In reality, from the beginning to now, the enemy troops were undamaged. The seemingly chaotic scene was an illusion that they purposefully orchestrated. Watching the battle up until now, Tian Yi had a preliminary judgment. This was a troop that was very strong. Their charging strength was extremely strong, they had practiced tactics, and they were high cooperative. They could rival his own battalion. If there had to be a shortcoming, it was experts. He had not seen any of the experts in this troop. This caused him puzzlement. Tian Yongqing did not tell Tian Yi the battle plan. He had sent Tian Hengbo in hopes he could take the chance to get some service merit. Yet the development of events was not as smooth as Tian Yongqing and Tian Hengbo had expected. Tian Yi was not in a hurry. In his view, Tian Hengbo was a Jindan and had 5 Jindan protecting him, so safety was not a problem. As to losses, Tian Yi wanted Tian Hengbo to suffer as many casualties as possible. This could show just how strong he, Tian Yi, was. With the skill level of this battalion, they most likely had planned follow-up moves. The Xiuzha following behind Ma Fan and the others decreased. Even 3 Jindan had felt that chasing like this was not as satisfactory as going to kill enemies, so they went in search of other targets. These guys were not very powerful, but were very slippery when fleeing. After chasing for only a few moments, there were only 2 people left by Tian Hengbo. No one noticed the sword Xiu that were flying in all directions in the sky drew out long and strange curved paths. And the other end of these paths intersected at a place hidden from view. It was like the bloomed flower that was closing. Watching from a distance, Tian Yi seemed to detect something. His brow creased slightly. His eyes suddenly widened and his eyes showed shock. Heavens, how did they do it? Those complex curved lines only had one destination. How had they done this in such a complex environment? It was hard to imagine. But Tian Yi's face quickly changed. Not good. Tian Hengbo was in danger. In his field of vision, Tian Hengbo was lured by the other continuously closer to the intersection point. Tian Yi was instantly panicked and shouted, "Advance!" The Shouja of Tianyi Battalion all paused. Didn't boss say they were going to wait here? Why were they advancing so suddenly? Tian Hengbo's side clearly had the advantage. Do you not have ears? Tian Yi shouted angrily. Everyone seemed to wake up and flew towards Turtle Island. Seeing Tian Hengbo rushing nearer to the intersection point, Tian Yi felt great panic. He had conflict with Tian Hengbo, but if Tian Hengbo died here, and he only looked on, then there would be great trouble when he returned to the clan. The present leader of the Tian family was Tian Yongqing. It was alright to get Tian Hengbo to lose face, but to have Tian Hengbo to lose his life. Yet from when Tian Hengbo had passed through the formation, Tianyi Battalion had stayed at the back. When Tian Hengbo had charged into Turtle Island, Tianyi Battalion had not moved a step forward. For the first time of his life, Tianyi hoped his prediction would not become reality. Ma Fan and the others raised their speed to the limits, the howling in the ears drowning out all other noise. They were fleeing for their lives. Jin Dan, what was chasing them were Jin Dan. Even if they were half a step into Jin Dan, when they were facing true Jin Dan Shouja, they still felt a great pressure. Fortunately, they were not fighting by themselves. They were familiar with every inch of Turtle Island. The scenes rushing past underneath their feet indicated to them their position, and their eyes became bright. The howling was still in their ears. Yet at this time, their attention was unprecedentedly focused. A nondescript little hill passed by their feet. The eyes of Ma Fan's group lit up, all the Ling power in their bodies vibrating, their extreme speed increasing slightly. This was the moment. Light suddenly rose in the sky above them. The blinding light caused everything they saw to be a white daze. They forced themselves to tolerate the blinding light, their speed maintained as they continued to fly. A sword energy the width of a door brushed dangerously past Ma Fan's body and caused his hairs to stand. This was a signal. Ma Fan seemed to be suddenly situated inside a storm of enormous sword energies. The hum of sword energies filled his ears. The intimidating sword essences flashed past and he would shake every time. This was the large sword energies that the 3-section wave killing charge used to face large-scale targets and experts. Each sword energy was made from the combined power of 3 sword shio. 100 large sword energies came from all directions and were as packed together as rain as they smashed into an area of 3 zhang around Tian Hengbo and the 2 Jindan. Clang! 100 large sword essences with unstoppable presence collided together. Collision, crumbling, fragmentation, explosion. A light even brighter than the one before exploded forth. The enormous wave of sound carried countless fragmented sword essences. Everywhere it passed, it caused people's minds to blank just like their vision. The entire battlefield became deathly silent. Chapter 472, The balance tilts. No matter which side they were on, people were shocked at such a fearsome scene. This was a perfect operation. No matter if it was Ma Fan's team that had lured the enemy, or the 300 sword shio that had come from all directions and silently executed the ambush, including the coordination where the sword energies passed by with a distance of only a hair's thickness, it could all be called perfect. When 100 large sword energies exploded in such a small area, the presence produced was so terrifying that even the 2 Jindan did not manage to respond before being reduced to ash. Recovering from the enormous explosion, the reaction on the 2 sides was completely different. The Tian family disciples had dazed expressions. The abrupt change was like a punch that struck their head and stunned them. Many people did not know what had happened, and those with keen eyes felt their heads ring and turn blank. What followed were ashen faces. For Ma Fan and the others, even though this attack was filled with luck and was unable to be repeated, it inspired their morale. Ma Fan and Wei Ran felt their confidence increase. The hint of timidity that was caused by the absence of Lil Miss also dissipated. Some of the sword shio of Vermilion Bird Camp still had disbelief on their faces. The actions they had planned and carried out had successfully ambushed and killed 2 Jindan. In a battlefield that was small and enclosed, the death of 2 Jindan could change many things. In this perfect operation, the ambush was the signal for the full-scale counterattack from Vermilion Bird Camp. When the Tian family disciples still had cluelessness on their faces, the sky full of sword hums were like fatal noises that sounded in unison. The large Turtle Island gave the Vermilion Bird Camp sword show a large battlefield so they could continuously accelerate and charge. One side was confused and puzzled, the other had increased morale. The chaotic battlefield instantly became one-sided. Sprays of blood erupted, howls and people continuously fell down. There were Tian family disciples that resisted, but as the conflict between the two sides increased, their hearts became chilled. Hands holding 5th grade golden crystal sword, wearing 4th grade blue soul cold light armor, the Vermilion Bird Camp sword shio looked like rich tycoons facing the Tian family disciples that mostly wore 3rd grade Ling armor. When facing a sword shio that was outfitted like this, it would cause one to feel helpless from the bottom of their hearts. If the other's sword strike did not kill them, it would wound them, and they would need to attack 3 times in a row to possibly cause damage to the enemy. If the difference in talismans between the two sides was not enough to deflate their courage, then the enormous difference in tactics caused their hopelessness to spread. The Turtle Island sword shio were like packs of cunning and vicious wolves. They never moved alone, always in groups of 3 to 5. Even if the enemy was one person, they would still surround them in groups of 3 to 5. If they encountered a strong opponent, these fragmented little teams would nimbly gather from all directions and furiously charge. Their charges were furious and inexhaustible, their sword lights sharp and unstoppable. They were cold and merciless, they were regulated and well organized, they were trained tactically. They were like demons that were born from the eerie fires of hell and carried the presence of death. The sky seemed to be dyed red by the sprays of blood that erupted. The crisscrossing cold sword lights were the magnificent flowers when death captured life. The weak defense of the Tian family disciples were drowned completely in the endless sword lights. Tian Hao's lips were trembling as his body uncontrollably shook. The sky full of sword howling was like countless owls croaking. He felt that he would be torn up in the next instant. He wasn't a novice, and was the elite of the battalion, he had seen situations of many sizes. But he still uncontrollably shook. He understood that the intimidating howling of the enemy attacks was the result of purposefully loosening their control of Ling power, but he still uncontrollably felt fear. He had never thought there would be a day that he would face such fearsome enemies. The talismans and flying swords that were worthy of envy and jealousy were not enough to defeat a battle-hardened veterans. He had killed many enemies with more powerful talismans than he had. This group of enemies gathered and scattered suddenly and were hard to predict. Each charge would be decisive. No matter how bad the situation was, or what advantage the enemy had, they would always maintain their little tactical formations. They were like machines that only knew to slaughter, they did not deviate, and did not make one mistake. There was nothing more frightening than this, or could make Tian Hao feel more hopeless. He suddenly felt the Tian family was so stupid. Why had they challenged an enemy that was so much powerful than they were? The sword lights in the sky grew and brushed through the sky like a comb. No matter how the enemies within the sword lights struggled and resisted, they were like fragile bubbles that popped upon contact. As the advantage on one side increased, the rhythm of battle would quickly increase. Another Jindan fell. From beginning to now, the 6 Jindan were important targets that Vermilion Bird Camp focused on. This Jindan had been dragged down by 150 Vermilion Bird Camp sword shio and died due to using up all of his Ling power. Even the 3 remaining Jindan felt their courage flee, much less those Tian family disciples. In this short period of time, 3 Jindan had died. They had never been through such a desperate battle, it was too frightening. They were Jindan and had more experienced eyes than other combat shio. The golden flying swords in the hands of the enemy sword shio was a frightening high degree, and even more powerful than the most outstanding 4th-grade flying swords. Being even stronger than the most outstanding 4th-grade flying swords, so what grade was it? Looking at the matching golden flying swords, they didn't dare to think. Flee. Losing their courage, the Tian family disciples ran away in a disorganized manner. They just wanted to leave this fearsome place as fast as possible. They did not put up any resistance because any resistance would affect their speed of escape. There was only one thought in their minds: flee. Flee as fast as possible. What family laws, what disciplehood, that was all thrown away at this time. It was unknown who it started with, but at this time, the ranks collapsed like an avalanche. All of the people shouted and then turned and fled for their lives. The fleeing crowd and the Tianyi battalion that had rushed over at full power now collided together. Tianye's face suddenly changed. The combat show at the front of the battalion shifted. Those clansmen that were completely in a frenzy charged into their battalion. In the eyes of these Tian family disciples that had lost their last threads of bravery, if they neared the Tian family battalion, they would be able to survive. The defeated soldiers flooded at Tianyi battalion like a tide. "Do not collide," Tianyi shouted urgently. His pupils suddenly expanded and his voice stopped abruptly. Sword light. All over the horizon. An angry wave composed from numerous sword lights were tightly following behind this group of fleeing soldiers and were aimed at him. Tianyi glared angrily, but his brain was still clear as ever. He knew if he hesitated in this moment, the entire troop would be lost. He shouted furiously, "Kill!" Tianyi battalion had gone to Blood Sky Metropolis. Jia had had more battle experience than normal battalions. These combat shio might not bear to do it, but they understood if their battle formation became disorganized, then they would all die. Their eyes were red as they shouted at the top of their lungs, "Kill!" Those Tian family disciples never had expected that Tianyi battalion would move against them. Unguarded, blood sprayed out and 70 or so Tian family disciples died instantly. Tianye's move was cruel, but it was effective and showed his decisiveness as an exceptional silver battle general. But he did not know that underneath their position, there was another troop waiting for them. The bright and beautiful sword lights attracted everyone's gaze. The appearance of Xu Long's group was silent and did not attract any attention. The 300 hardship guards that had just received MO weapons were so silent they were like statues. Xu Long coldly looked at the sky, his handsome face calm. Xu Long could not be said to be a battle general, but he had received Pu Yao's teachings and his eyes were not lacking. Pu Yao had once thought of nurturing Xu Long into a battle general, but the path of Yao battle generals and MO battle generals were completely different paths. Only a freak like Swa Mo could naturally feel the power of others. However, Xu Long did not lack the knowledge and judgment that a battle general should have. He could see that Ma Fan's group had the advantage. Guard Camp and Vermilion Bird Camp were in a competitive relationship, but that was a deliberate manipulation by Xu Long and Ma Fan. Xu Long had a deep understanding of the combat capabilities of Vermilion Bird Camp. He knew very well when Vermilion Bird Camp held the advantage in battle, then it wasn't far from the end of battle. So he did not move, and stealthily hid, waiting to give those defeated soldiers a fatal blow. But when he saw Tianyi battalion coming to aid, he changed his mind. In boss words, that was a fatter sheep. Born a sword shio, Xu Long had endurance other people could not rival. He silently waited for a chance. Until this moment. "Kill!" Xu Long bellowed as the black halberd in his hand stabbed into the sky. The black mist that surrounded the black halberd formed a 3 zhang long halberd shadow that howled into the sky. "Kill!" 300 hardship guards shouted together and attacked with the MO weapons in their hands. 300 black misty shadows of various shapes were 300 shrieking crows that shot at Tianyi battalion in the sky. The black mist released by the hardship guards merged into one patch that moved relentlessly. It was the Crow Fiend MO kill formation. Xu Long's black halberd shadow was like an enormous nail that pierced into the ranks of Tianyi battalion. Pia, a moderate explosion, the halberd exploded and turned to a thick ball of black mist that covered dozens of combat show. The 300 black shadows that came after exploded at the same time and became thick black mist that covered half of the Tianyi battalion combat show. Tianyi battalion was preparing for the incoming sword energy attacks. This sudden change caused confusion to spread through the ranks, resulting in chaos. Tianyi was both shocked and angry. He was shrouded in the black mist and couldn't even see his fingers. So vicious. At this point in battle, to use this kind of spell to obscure their vision, they were really vicious. Shocked and angry, he yelled, "All on defense. Prepare to face sword energies." Just at this time, the black mist that seemed harmless and only served obscured people's vision suddenly bared its fangs. Chapter 473, Fatal Blow. Tianyi felt the situation was terrible. He didn't know what talisman the black mist had been forged from, but it was extremely thick, obscuring their vision. In front of him was a black expanse so thick he could not even see his fingers, but he could clearly sense the nervousness of the guards that were next to him. The attack that followed definitely would be ferocious. The attack wave constructed from countless sword energies caused him to feel deep worry, even though he had only managed to take a glance. His battalion was strong offensively and weak defensively. The defensive formation they usually practiced, the Sky Sunflower Guard formation, was not an outstanding defense formation. He was doubtful about how long the Sky Sunflower Guard formation could hold up under such a strong charge. He already prepared himself for losing his soldiers, if it wasn't for this black mist. Even though there would still be losses, this situation would lead to many more than he previously expected. He had absolute confidence in his command, yet what shocked him and surprised him was that the Sky Ray Treasure Lens was completely ineffective against this black mist. The Sky Ray Treasure Lens was the most important talisman on his body and was his only 6th grade talisman. It could see through illusory spells and techniques, could view things outside 1,000 li, and could be called a wondrous treasure. The Sky Ray Treasure Lens was the top reason that they had managed to survive in Blood Sky Metropolis Jia. Yet this talisman that never failed him before was ineffective today. Because of the island formation, he had been unable to view the island from the outside. The Sky Ray Treasure Lens was also non-responsive against this black mist, and had made Tianyi suspect that it was broken. This black mist was probably a special talisman. Tianyi thought about this, but more of his attention was placed on the sword energy wave that was soon to arrive. After roaming in Blood Sky Metropolis Jia for a long time, he had seen many strange talismans, one stranger than even this, and naturally did not feel great wonder. Suddenly, a light grunt came from beside him. However, this did not attract Tianyi's attention. The howling of the sword energy wave was like thunder in comparison, and the entire sky seemed to be trembling from its approach. Under this terrifying wave of sound, no one paid attention to the occasional grunts that sounded from inside the black mist. Everyone's nerves were stretched tight, and Sky Sunflower Guard formation was channeled to its maximum. The first to detect something was not right was Tianyi. His face suddenly changed. Not good. There was a plot. The tang of blood was faintly discernible in the black mist, seemed to prove his speculation. Unafraid of anything, Tianyi's face was ashen. His expanded pupils were full of disbelief and also had deep terror. Sky Sunflower Guard formation. It was Sky Sunflower Guard formation that was telling him. As the main commander of the battalion, every change in the battle formation would be reported to him. He has just noticed that the power of the Sky Sunflower Guard formation was slightly less than half its usual strength. This discovery almost stopped his breathing. This wasn't possible. He was not an useless person, and he had relied on his actual skills to obtain this position. In just an instant, he understood everything and was dumbstruck. In this short period, only 2/3 of the combat Shio were left in the Sky Sunflower Guard formation. How was this possible? He almost didn't dare to believe this result. This battalion's members had been handpicked by him. He had taken them to bloody Sky Metropolis Jie and gone through many hardships to bring them back to Cloud Sea Jie. These subordinates that were unwaveringly loyal to him, he understood them better than anyone. They definitely would not make such a fatal mistake at such a crucial time. The only possibility was that 1/3 of the combat Shio had been assassinated unknowingly. He suddenly realized that the black mist wasn't used to just obscure their vision. It hid a murderousness plot. At this time, one of his personal guards slumped over without any strength. "A Yong!" Tianyi shouted in shock. For the first time, he felt terror. The black mist that was almost tangible in front of his eyes seemed to hit a vicious beast that could not be seen and would consume lives at any moment. Tianyi's shout did not attract the attention of other combat Shio because of the sword energies. The howling of the sword energy great wave drowned out everything, like the howling and barks of countless Yao beasts. They charged like a tide, furious and bloodthirsty. Bam bam bam. Facing this terrifying wave of sword energy, the light of the defensive formation was as fragile as glass, and upon contact, it turned to powder in the black mist. The collapse of the battle formation undoubtedly signaled the fate of this group of combat Shio. In battles between battalions, when their formation was shattered, especially their defense formation, that meant failure. The talismans on the soldiers' bodies were not any different than papier-mâché in front of the vast expanse of sword energies. The combat Shio that lost the protection of the battle formation didn't even have time to wail before they were torn to pieces by the flood of sword energies. The moment the battle formation shattered, Tianyi knew that they had lost this battle. Lost completely. His terror disappeared, and he showed the rebellious smile he usually had. Dying under the sword of such an opponent, it was a worthy death. Flee! 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 The three Jindan were like homeless dogs, hating that their parents hadn't given birth to them with a pair of wings. In their frantic retreat, none of them displayed the usual composure of a Jindan. They had originally prepared to flee towards the Tianyi battalion, as it was the top battalion of the Tian family and was very strong. If they could run there, they should be safe. The three of them were Jindan cultivation, and Tianyi would definitely recruit them. If they could help Tianyi get some combat service, then they would find it easy to return home. They were different than those others that were recruited from the outside. They were born Tian family members, and their own family members were in the clan. If they were not forced to, then they would not leave the Tian family. Who knew the Tianyi battalion that they put their high hopes on couldn't even stand up under one encounter and had turned to ash? The three completely lost of their courage. That was Tianyi battalion. The true top battalion of the Tian family. A battalion that could rank in all of Cloud Sea Jie. Ow! How could it be destroyed just like that? Terror was like a powerful poison that spread to every corner of their body and ate at every one of their nerves. There was only one thought in their minds: stay far from this ghastly place. Farther. They flew furiously. Yet what they had not expected was that because their speed was much faster than other combat Shio, they were extremely eye-catching and had attracted Lil Pagoda's attention. Before, Ma Fan's plan had been to bolt the door and beat the dog. They were to lure the Tian family into the island, and then close the large formation to destroy all of them on the island. Yet no one had expected Tianyi battalion to not advance with the others, and not enter Turtle Island as they had expected. Due to this, Lil Pagoda still had not received the order to close the island formation. But when Lil Pagoda saw the three Jindan about the escape from the island formation, it became panicked and instantly closed the formation without a word. In a blink, black clouds appeared in the sky. Thunder roared in the cloud layers, and silver snakes arced. The black clouds came extremely quickly, as though it appeared out of everywhere. The expressions of the three Jindan changed dramatically. They were not dumb and understood what the other intended. To kill them all. Among the thick black clouds, the curving electric snakes caused their hearts to tremble. The terrifying power was like a storm that blew against the weak mental barriers of the three. Yet the last straw that broke the camel's back was the azure light that was faintly discernible. The three felt themselves frozen and all of them had hopeless expressions. When had they ever been pushed to such a hopeless state? After becoming Jindan, failure and setbacks seemed to distance themselves, and they were forever the objects of admiration. But right now, the hopelessness on the person leading gradually turned to viciousness. His face was twisted, his eyes full of uncaring frenzy as he shouted, "Brothers! Kill one to break even." His harsh and hopeless voice suddenly stopped, his expression freezing on his face as though he became statue in a flash. He dropped down from the sky, bam, and hit the ground heavily. There wasn't a thread of life on his body. Following the fall of their fellow, the Jindan seemed to see a ghost. There was a wooden-faced young female and a large bird silently standing near his body. The young female did not have any expression on her face, her eyes empty and without emotion. The large bird beside her was staring with a vicious expression at them. Was it this seemingly lifeless young female that had just attacked? They found it hard to believe. This young female did not seem to be exceptional in any regard, and they were even unable to feel any Ling power vibration from her body. No one told them the answer. Endless terror consumed their minds, other than terror their eyes could not hold anything else. The bravery to drag others into death with them was erased by this eerie attack. This was an eerie place. Everything was so eerie. Otherwise, why would they have been defeated? Why did Tianyi Battalion get defeated so quickly? Why did they have to die here? Why was not one person able to escape? Everything was like a nightmare in front of them. Their gazes were scattered and their presences became chaotic. They heard a clear chirp among their blurriness and it seemed to have a thread of disdain. What followed was a pain in their chest and then they did not know anything. Looking at the black clouds that shrouded the entire Turtle Island, Li Shu showed a serious expression. At his side, Feng Bai's expression was shocked. Is all of Tian family going to die here? I hadn't expected that this Turtle Island strength was so, it isn't bad. Li Shu did not speak. Feng Shixiang said that Turtle Island wasn't bad but it could be heard from his tone that he was indifferent. This was very normal. Feng Shixiang was just passing through Cloud Sea Jia and did not understand the Tian family's strength so he would be like this. But Li Shu understood the Tian family's strength and deep worry entered his eyes. Chapter 474, A Visit from Liao Qi-chang. After victory of the battle at Turtle Island, Lil Mist did not hesitate and instantly retaliated against the Tian family. Their battalions killed, the remaining Tian family forces were not a match for Vermilion Bird Camp and quickly collapsed. Even the old master Tian that was in seclusion in hopes of breaking through to Yuanying had to come out to save them. Yet Suoyamo and the others had returned by this time. With all of the experts in attendance, even though old master Tian had Jindan third stratum cultivation, he could not stop Suoyamo and the others from ganging up on him and was killed. The battle that occurred between Turtle Island and the Tian family astounded all of Su Ling City. The Tian family's instantaneous destruction was a great blow to many people, especially those businesses that had allied with the Tian family to work against Turtle Island. They were terrified and many of them even fled Su Ling City during the night. What was worthy of speculation was Su Ling sect's attitude. Su Ling sect had not reacted to such a significant event, as though they did not notice it had occurred. Having taken over the Tian family's territory in Ling Fields, Turtle Island jumped to become the second power of Su Ling City and its reputation shot up. The news that followed after pushed Turtle Island's reputation to even greater heights. Someone found had Yuan Xian's bones. Yuan Xian was found on a desolate island. His fleshly body had been destroyed, only leaving behind pale white bones. If it was not his personal effects and artifacts that proved he was Yuan Xian, no one would connect this pile of white bones to the top-ranked expert of Cloud Sijia. Yuan Xian was dead, Ning Yi and Gu Minggong had disappeared. The businesspeople of Suling City entered a period of unprecedented terror. The businesses that could escape Suling City all ran, while many of the remaining businesses could not leave Suling City, due to various reasons, could only await their fates. The news of the Tian family were nightmares that did not allow them to rest at night. Suling City was full of terror. At this time Turtle Island was full of joy and cheer. This battle had been a dangerous one, but they had achieved victory in the end. Starting from yesterday, everyone was inventorying the spoils, and all of them couldn't help but smile. The richness of the harvest this time surpassed everyone's predictions. The Tian family was very rich, as would be expected of a family with a long history. It dazzled Zuomo's eyes and caused him to drool. He finally knew that he had underestimated these local families. In just Jingshi, there were 36 sixth-grade Jingshi, and the talismans of various types were innumerable. There were 2 sixth-grade talismans. Other than the Sky Ray Treasure Lens, the other was a rare 6th-grade Ling Plant Talisman, Earth Spirit Matter Conveying Stone. He had taken the Earth Spirit Matter Conveying Stone from the body of the old Master Tian. He didn't know what this stone was forged from. It could continuously release Ling power, and nurture all substances. It was a wondrous treasure. Even Zuomo had never seen such a wondrous talisman before. There were also many 4th and 5th grade talismans, but they no longer interested Zuomo. He gave them as rewards to the members with outstanding accomplishments in battle. What were the most numerous was the Tian family's Ling fields and Ling mines. The Tian family had started out as Ling plant farmers, and even Su Ling sect could not compare to them in terms of Ling fields. The Tian family also had the largest number of Ling plant farmers. Under the soft and hard tactics from the Tian family, these Ling plant farmers had signed death contracts. Now that the Tian family was defeated, they also became Zuomo's spoils of battle. However, Zuomo had decided not to reveal the formations on the Ling fields of Turtle Island to these Ling plant farmers. He wasn't ignorant and understood this method that completely upended the traditional Ling farming methods, and would create endless trouble for him if it was revealed. Before he was strong enough, there could only be one outcome. With so many Ling plant farmers, he didn't need to worry at all and only needed to send a few people to supervise the production. This was a hen that would continuously lay golden eggs. Island Master really is powerful. Outside the island, Liao Qi-chang's voice passed over the distance. Zuomo leapt into the air and welcomed him. He saw Liao Qi-chang and Su Jingwei come together and raised his folded hands in a greeting. "Mr. Liao, Elder Su, long time no see." Su Jingwei hurriedly returned the greeting and his tone held a thread of awe. "Island Master, long time no see." If it was said he had just been shocked at the power of Zuomo and the others, now he really felt awe. The enormous Tian family had been turned to dust in the blink of an eye. The power of this Turtle Island wasn't just awe-inspiring, it was terrifying. Liao Qi-chang laughed brightly. "Island Master's fight tactics are uncanny and will be a classic. This is just good luck." Luck. Zuomo pretended to be humble as he spoke, but he still felt proud inside. Liao Qi-chang shook his head and said, "Luck. Island Master is incorrect. Who can destroy the Tian family based on luck? Only people with great charisma and skill can do it. Even that battalion ranking can't stay still. 32, a rank that even the Su Ling battalion has never held. It seems the name of Turtle Island is going to spread through the entire Cloud Sijia." Zuomo tried to act humble, but he still couldn't help but smile. These were clearly the mannerisms of a lowly person that had accomplished their dream. However, it had not gone to his head. He hurriedly said, "That doesn't count, doesn't count. What have you come for this time?" He saw Liao Qi-chang say with a smile, "This one has come this time for 3 matters." Zuomo replied, "What 3 matters?" The first matter is to congratulate Island Master for your great victory. Zhuo Mo's expression did not change. He asked, "Many thanks, Mr. Liao." Then the second matter. The second is about the Azure Ether. This one has remembered the Azure Ether matter that Island Master mentioned and has searched around. This one finally found it recently and is delivering it personally, as to not distract Island Master from your affairs. When Liao Qichang finished speaking, he took out a transparent glass bottle. Inside the bottle was a ball of azure substance that was like cloud or mist but not that slowly flowed. As expected, this was Azure Ether. Zhuo Mo couldn't help but show joy. The meridional Azure Ether formation on the island only lacked the Azure Ether and it would then be perfect. In the battle this time, the power of the meridional Azure Ether formation had showed itself. If it wasn't for the meridional Azure Ether formation, and there was only the Yin-Yang Thunder Cloud formation, the enemy would have managed to break through long before Vermilion Bird Camp had fully prepared. What is the selling price of this Azure Ether? Zhuo Mo's eyes were burning. Liao Qichang smiled slightly and said, "This is hard to find but its price is not high. This bottle of Azure Ether is a present for Island Master, it is this one's gift of congratulations for Island Master's victory." Finishing, he gently handed the glass bottle to Zhuo Mo. Zhuo Mo received it and it disappeared in a flash. There was no shame on his face. "Then many thanks, Brother Liao." Liao Qichang smiled slightly. The bottle is crystal clean light bottle, it is a bottle that is good for capturing substances such as clouds, mist and flowing it. So this is for Island Master as well. "Many thanks, Brother Liao." Zhuo Mo was slightly moved this time. To say of nothing else, just this mannerism of gifting was not something normal people could afford to do. Then the third matter. Zhuo Mo asked proactively. He also knew the other wouldn't give him talismans for no reason. He must have a request for the third matter. As long it was not a difficult matter, he would consent. This third matter is this one wants to ask Island Master for mercy, Liao Qichang said slowly. Mercy? Mercy for what? Zhuo Mo did not understand. Liao Qichang sighed lightly. When this one heard that some businesses had allied with the Tian family to scheme against your island, this one knew it was not good. Yet my warnings did not carry weight, and they did not listen to this one's urgings. With Island Master's great victory, they are fearful and cannot rest at night. Originally, this one did not plan on interfering in this matter, one needs to pay their debts, but they have some connections to this one, and have pleaded to me for days. This one really cannot bear it, and has come with a thick face to ask for a favor from Island Master. Please, spare them. Zhuo Mo's face turned dark. He hadn't expected Liao Qichang to ask for mercy on behalf of those people. Those businesses had allied with the Tian family to suppress him from the beginning. He opened cultivation classes, they tried to stop it by using their power. Then they had a share in hiring Ning Yi, Yuan Xian and Gu Minggong. Zhuo Mo was never a generous person. It was the opposite. He was vengeful and would settle his debts, he would repay favors and take revenge. From the beginning, he had noted it down and waited to settle the debts later. Liao Qichang actually was asking for mercy for these people. Liao Qichang knew that this request was one that difficult. Even though the battle between Ning Yi's group and Turtle Island was a mystery, but it was possible to see the life-threatening danger involved from the death of Yuan Xian. No one would easily spare those that had almost killed them. They are extremely regretful and know it is not possible to escape their crime. Every family is willing to give their leader to Island Master to determine their fate. Also, Island Master, please accept these 10 pieces of 6th grade Jingshi. They only hope to preserve some part of their family, Island Master, please spare them. Liao Qichang took out a yellow little bag and handed it to Zhuo Mo. Zhuo Mo's expression eased slightly but he did not immediately take the Jingshi. He looked at Liao Qichang and said, those that were responsible for starting this matter need to take responsibility. Liao Qichang understood that Zhuo Mo's words were a death sentence for these people. Those clans would definitely deliver the heads of these people for the sake of their families and to calm Turtle Island's anger. He nodded crisply and said, "All right." Suemo now took the Jingshi and said, "This time, I will spare them because of Brother Liao. If they have other thoughts in the future, then do not blame this one for being impolite. That is natural." Liao Qichang smiled as he was relieved of a great burden. He hadn't wanted to take this hot potato, but they had slowly ground down his resolve, so he had forced himself to come. However, the success of this negotiation was also beneficial for him. His reputation among the businesses would grow and no one would openly contend with this businesses. Suemo was also very content. The 10 pieces of 6th grade Jingshi was a great surprise, and by executing those responsible, it would intimate the businesses of Suling City. This was the best result. Turtle Island had just swallowed the Tian family and did not have a stable foundation. Even though he did not know why Suling's sect had not made a sound this time, the other definitely was paying attention in secret. It was not hard to make trouble for those little businesses. But for Suemo and the others that had recently come to Suling City, it was not a wise decision to make enemies everywhere. Rampaging and charging everywhere was something only a rash person would do. How could the cunning Suemo do such unprofitable business? Since the other side had given Suemo enough to show their respect, Suemo was naturally willing to take a steps off the stage. Getting rich without lifting a finger was the best plan. After all, the fat piece of meat, the Tian family, could not be digested in a short period of time. Chapter 475, Meridional Azure Ether Formations. Suemo stopped in the air above Turtle Island. Looking down at the enormous island, he couldn't help but feel emotional. Suddenly, he spread his arms, and gathered all the Ling power in his body. Pia pia pia. 108 meridional azure ether spikes shot out of the earth and silently floated around him. Suemo's expression became serious. He took out the crystal clear light bottle from his ring, and lightly plucked out the stopper. A ball of azure ether continuously flooded out of the mouth. This azure ether was extraordinarily beautiful. It was cloud-like and mist-like, but not either of them with an indigo azure color. When it wafted out, it did not dissipate but floated in the sky and slowly swirled. Suemo's 10 figures flew furiously. Streaks of Ling power lights rose and extinguished on his fingertips, the light blooming and profound. Suemo's eyes suddenly became bright as he shouted, "Ha!" A streak of light left his hand and entered the azure ether. The azure ether suddenly froze and then exploded. It turned to 108 threads of azure smoke and shot into the meridional azure ether spikes. Suemo's expression became even more stern. His right hand moved and a meridional azure ether spike flew in front of him. Suemo didn't seem to make a move, but a thread of great day banded flame appeared soundlessly in front of him that swallowed that meridional azure ether spike. The azure ether within the spike was stimulated and shifted restlessly, causing even the great day banded flame to be tinged with azure. About an hour later, the azure tinge in the great day banded flame retreated and it became a golden flame once more with differently colored bands. The meridional azure ether spike once again returned to Suemo's hand. There was a long and narrow azure ether seal was on the body of the spike, which now glowed and exuded a faint power. Suemo showed a satisfied expression on his face. His right hand moved and another spike flew. The refinement process started again. He forged the spikes one after the other. He would rest when he was tired, and then continue when his Ling power was replenished. As he continuously forged, his skill became more practiced and he had a deeper understanding of the azure ether seal that caused his speed to increase. After 3 days, the reforging of the 108 meridional azure ether spikes was completed. The reforged meridional azure ether spikes floated around him like stars circling the moon. Suemo could faintly feel the unique communication between them. There were 6 different azure ether seals, each of them with their own power and abilities that floated through Zhuomo's mind. He seemed to understand something. Almost unconsciously, he raised both of his hands. There seemed to be an invisible string that caused 108 meridional azure ether spikes to float upward as though they were being pulled. The azure ether seals on the spokes lit up one by one. When the azure ether seal on the last meridional azure ether spike lit up, an invisible force suddenly surrounded Zhuomo's body shook slightly. Like the water in the pond was full and about to overflow. Zhuomo did not even think as his hands suddenly pressed down on the empty air and shouted, "In." Like arrows leaving the bowstring, the 108 meridional azure ether spikes turned to 108 dashes of azure light that entered all corners of Turtle Island. An enormous azure light shell then covered the island like a bowl being placed upside down. Many Xiuzha were disturbed by the change and flew into the sky. Their attention were all attracted to this thin light shell. Zhuomo released a breath as though he was relieved of a great burden. He raised his head to look at the azure light shield above his head. This layer of light was extremely thin and seemed as though it would shatter upon contact like eggshell. Zhuomo knew that Jindan Xiuzha definitely could not break through it and it would hold unless a Yuanying Xiuzha attacked. Even then a Yuanying Xiuzha would not have an easy time breaking through this thin shell of light. The defensive power of the meridional azure ether formation was extremely strong. If he could find better materials, better azure ether, the power of the formation would grow to the point that even Yuanying could not break it. Zhuomo quickly threw this unrealistic notion to the back of his mind. All the wealth he had, even added together, wouldn't be enough to forge such a set of meridional azure ether spikes. The shield of light gradually dimmed until it could not be seen. The sky seemed to return to what it was before, but Zhuomo knew that the defensive power of the formation had more than doubled. Zhuomo wanted to make his own nest a fort. Zhuomo considered whether he should construct a few formation battle watchtowers, but then he ended the thought. The power of the formation battle watchtowers were slightly useless to the present Turtle Island. In the past, everyone's skill was not very high, and their enemies were not strong. But Zhuomo didn't even remember how many Jindan they had encountered. If conflict occurred, the power of the formation battle watchtower would not be sufficient. Also, their present power was not something that their past could compare to. After experiencing the sealed extinction battlefield, with the help of the black processing meditation mat, the formations that originated in Mo matrices, the Ling Dan and Ling foods, as long as Zhuomo had it, he would not be miserly. Many of the Xiuzha of Vermilion Bird Camp had reached the 3rd stratum of Ningmai. Even Golden Crow Camp had many that reached the 3rd stratum. Becoming Jindan was the right path. One normal Jindan Xiuzha was equivalent to hundreds of Ningmai Xiuzha. But Zhuomo didn't have good solutions to aid core formation. Right now with his 3 powers as one, his Ling power's strange stagnant period of no growth had finally been broken. Of course, with benefit, there came loss. Now the strange cycle of his Ling power growth was broken, his Mo physique had instead stopped growing. Even if Zhuomo cultivated his Mo physique, what grew was his Ling and spiritual power. Zhuomo suspected that the growth of the Mo physique was being limited by his Ling and spiritual power, and would only grow once all 3 had reached the same level. Due to the pause in his Ling power growth in the past, Zhuomo's present Ling power was the lowest in the entire camp, other than when compared to the Flower Yao. This was a great source of dejection for him. Zhuomo had asked Pu Yao and Wei Sheng if there was any ideas about core formation. However, the two did not know, they were not Xiuzha in the end. Zhuomo planned on asking Su Zhengwei or Liao Qichang in the future. If he could hire a few Jindan, the power of the camp would go up another level. Right now, Zhuomo had other affairs to attend to. The earth spirit matter conveying stone was put at the center of the entire island. This treasure was really wondrous, causing the Ling energy of the entire island to increase instantly. The Ling fields were affected the most, and the grades of all the Ling fields were increased by a fraction. Ling fields of higher grades could raise Ling plants of higher grades, and could produce Ling plants of better quality. Zuemo also moved the high-grade Ling plants he had found from the Tian family estate, planted near the earth spirit matter conveying stone. One of them was a 5th-grade fury maple. Its leaves were as red as fire and the trunk was a dark red. When one walked near, they could clearly feel a wave of heat being exuded from the plant. It was a rare fire Ling plant and each leaf it produced was worth 1,000 jingshi. The fruit it produced was called Fire Eye fruit, and was used to forge fire element talismans. The other plant was 1,000-finger guanyin orchid. This flower was 5th grade and shaped like the fingers of the guanyin. If it bloomed, it would have thousands of flowers and was named so. This flower was deeply coveted by Diana Xiao and was greatly beneficial for their samadhi. It was also the raw material for many Ling medicines. The 1,000-finger guanyin orchid would bloom every decade and was extremely rare due to this. Zuemo had been shocked and joyous that the Tian family had 2 such rare Ling plants. Compared to these 2 Ling plants, the sonic lightning walnut wasn't much. Old Master Tian had started off dealing in Ling plants, and naturally had collected more than these 2 plants in his collection. There were also many rare 4th-grade plants but they were now all in Zuemo's purse now. He had moved the entire Ling plant garden to Turtle Island. He dug up all of the Tian family treasures, even the treasure safes that were hidden deep in the ground had been dug out under the guidance of Lil Black. As for the Sky Ray treasure lens, Zuemo gifted it to Gongsun Shidi. This talisman was suited for battle generals and was akin to giving wings to Lil Mississippi. The richness of the gains this time surpassed his predictions but there were also losses. Wei Xingxixiang and Zhong Ru were recuperating from their wounds. Zhong Ru's wounds were not too serious but eldest Xixiang was still unconscious. Zuemo was very worried. Thinking about it now, Ning Yi's power still shook his mind. Compared to Ning Yi, Old Master Tian wasn't on the same level. Zuemo hadn't put great value on talismans in the past, but this battle really called his attention to them. If it wasn't for the surprise performance of the black gold seal soldier and the black sword in eldest Xixiang's hands, they would have died back then. The power that could be expressed by powerful talismans were terrifying. He finally understood now why so many Xiuzha would furiously pursue talismans. One didn't feel it in daily life, but when one encountered a true expert, they finally knew what it was to struggle with each step and not have a solution. What caused all this, other than the others' high cultivation, was the talisman on their hands. One talismans could decide life and death. They had forged many talismans but there was never a talismans that possessed the terrifying power of the blood fiend Ashur umbrella. Zuemo felt that they had not invested enough energy in this area. Truly top talismans were almost always forged by the Xiuzha who used it. People wouldn't sell these kind of talismans, and what could be bought on the market were outstanding, like the Blue Soul Cold Light Armor, but these were not considered top-tier talismans. Zuemo decided to forge a powerful talisman. Otherwise the dangers of the last incident would occur again. He thought of a person. Tied up with the immortal tying chains, Gu Minggong's spirits were low. Not eating or drinking for a few days wasn't a big problem for him, but how long was it since he has had to endure such a thing? His mind was blank. Ever since 30 years ago, when his forging and seal-making skills had matured, he had lived a luxurious life. No matter where he went, which person did not greet him with a smiling face. But right now, he was a prisoner. He was very clear that the other had not killed him because he probably had an interest in his forging and seal creation skills. If he was of no use, there would only be one outcome for him. He felt unparalleled terror. At this moment, with a creak, the door was pushed open. A young entered his vision, the one that had captured him. He knew the time to decide his fate had arrived. Chapter 476, Soul-Setting Divine Light. Zuemo stared at Gu Minggong silently. The pressure brought by the silence almost caused Gu Minggong to suffocate. Endless terror spread through his heart. He felt the other's gaze seemed to be looking at something dead, or a lamb waiting for slaughter. I don't want to die. What he did not know was that Suomo's silence was not on purpose to pressure him but because he was in heated discussion with Pu Yao and Wei. I want him to work for me. In the sea of consciousness, Suomo shrugged with a matter-of-fact expression. But he is a Jindan and has a higher cultivation than I do. He's also skilled in formation, so it is very dangerous. What suggestions do you have? Pu Yao said unconcernedly, if you only want the forging knowledge in his mind, you can just draw out his soul. Draw his soul. This phrase caused Suomo to shudder uncontrollably. Even though it is slightly cruel, it is very effective. If you can draw out his soul, you can quickly possess the knowledge that belongs to him. How about it? Are you moved? Pu Yao's eerie red pupil narrowed and the slight smile on the corner of his mouth carried a coldness that was unique to him. He continued, of course, there is nothing that is perfect in the world. You will receive his memories and comprehensions, but it will also affect your mind. Suomo's hairs rose up when hearing this, but he couldn't stop himself from asking, what are the effects? Usually a personality split, a change in personality, etc., who knows? Everyone's played about with the soul for so many years, but no one truly understands, Pu Yao said irresponsibly. Suomo almost immediately blocked Pu Yao's method. He turned his face. Wei, do you have any methods? Wei thought for a moment and slowly opened, we can only look in the direction of Jinji. Jinji? Suomo's eyes lit up but then his brow creased. His cultivation is higher than mine, so I cannot put Jinji in him. He's also skilled in formation, so it might not be able to restrain him. I know a type of ancient Jinji that might work. Wei was very conservative in his words. Suomo's eyes lit up, what Jinji? Tell me. Pu Yao also had curiosity on his face. Wei's existence was more ancient than his and he was also curious what kind of strange and wondrous Jinji Wei could produce. I feel we must first discuss payment, Wei said smilingly. In this moment, Suomo felt Wei's expression was almost the exact same as Pu Yao. His expression instantly crumbled. Pu Yao was a calamity. Whomever stayed with him would be affected. Even this guy's heart was black. Seriously. Suomo wailed. Wei was not affected and smiled at Suomo. Suomo quickly surrendered. Alright, what payment do you want? Guard camp cultivates Mo skills, it is not suited for Pu, give it to me, Wei said with the same smile. Pu Yao's eyes instantly narrowed and became as long and cold as a blade, his entire body exuding an extremely dangerous presence. Wei was not affected by this as though he did not detect the change, my previous master was a Mo, and I understand more about how to cultivate Mo skills than Pu. I can get them to grow more quickly. Also, to date guard camp hasn't produced even one battle general, this is enough to show that Pu Yao is not suited to teaching guard camp. Pu Yao's expression was unfriendly. His entire person was like a cold blade that was unsheathed, the black robes he was wearing flapping despite the lack of wind as though he would leap and consume his enemy. For Pu Yao, guard camp was something he was used to while away his time. He didn't find it so important, but that did not mean he would allow someone to take it away from him. How could the proud Pu Yao tolerate such a matter happening to him? The black fire in the sea of consciousness seemed to solidify. Suomo felt his scalp turn numb. Both of these were people he could not afford to offend. How had he been pulled into the battle between them? This was dangerous. Too dangerous for his life. He didn't dare to make a sound. He suspected that if he showed even the slightest bit of agreement, Pu Yao would tear him to pieces on the spot. Pu Yao's voice was bone-chillingly cold. Jinji? Who doesn't know Jinji? Just one type of Jinji and you want guard camp? You are delusional. A certain fake gentleman won't teach, I'll teach you. This Jinji is called Purple Netherworld Curse. Wei's faint voice interrupted. Purple Netherworld Curse can only be cast by Rahula Yao. If there isn't not enough spiritual power, it would backlash on the user. Pu Yao stilled and his expression became uglier. Humph, other than Purple Netherworld Curse, there is the Needle Ghost Curse. The Needle Ghost Curse needs 13 bone needles, those aren't easy to find. Pu Yao's face became increasingly dark. He suddenly smiled coldly. Oh, then I want to see what your Jinji is. So you have agreed? Wei looked fearlessly at Pu Yao. Pu Yao said proudly, with this guy's power, a skill that can be realized at the spot, without any side effect. If you can do it, so what if I give you guard camp? Zuomo wanted to say weakly, big brothers, guard camp is actually mine, but intelligence caused him to keep his mouth closed. He couldn't offend any of these two big bosses. Suddenly, his mind became alert. Fight. Keep fighting. The more you fight, the more benefits GE gets. How did the phrase go? The crane and the clam fights, while the fisherman gets the rice. He closed his mouth tightly and didn't say a word. If that's the case, then I will be disrespectful. Wei smiled warmly, but his words hid needles among the cotton that caused Pu Yao's face to become a fraction uglier. There is nothing in verbal battle. I'm still waiting for you wondrous Jinji to broaden my visions, Pu Yao said ambiguously. Wei finally said lightly, this Jinji is called Soul-Setting Divine Light. Hearing this name, Pu Yao's expression suddenly changed. His abruptly opening pupil was full of disbelief. Soul-Setting Divine Light. You actually comprehend Soul-Setting Divine Light. It was the first time Zuomo had seen such an expression on Pu Yao's face. There was a shock of terror within the amazement and deep disbelief. Soul-Setting Divine Light. What was that? Zuomo's mind was full of puzzlement. If it could cause Pu Yao to lose his composure, then it must be very powerful. Wei still had that same gentle smile, but at the time, it was full of immeasurability. I tried to learn it incidentally, but I didn't learn it. Who are you really? Pu Yao looked hard at Wei. If it wasn't that they would live and die together and coexist together, he would have not been able to stop himself from attacking. He suddenly found that he knew pitifully little about Wei's origins. Other than knowing Wei was once the gravestone armor of the former corps commander, he knew nothing else. I am Wei. Too, Wei smiled as usual, the smile warm as the sunlight of the dawn. Zuomo saw the two's tense face-off and instantly became nervous. Big brothers, this is an sea of consciousness. He instantly threw the idea of the fisherman getting the rice to the back of his head and tried to make peace. Let's talk peacefully, let's talk peacefully. What is this soul-setting divine light? Is it very powerful? Wei smiled at him. Pu Yao said coldly, if even you didn't learn it, how can you teach him? Wei smiled, my talent is not good, it is normal that I could not learn it. Pu Yao seemed to hear a joke. You feel this boy is talented? Even though he is my student, but his talents, very normal. Zuomo didn't accept that, and his face suddenly became black. What? GE's talents were not good? GE's talents are not good? Zuomo shot back. How was it that was crying and shouting to take GE as a student? TSK, burning the bridge after crossing it, eating and wiping clean, then saying GE's talent isn't good? Pu Yao's old face turned red as he coughed violently. Wei had a wry smile on his face. Yes, you can't be that kind of Yao. How about you give this student to me? Don't push it. Pu Yao recovered his cold smirk. I'm not a little child who doesn't know anything. Soul-setting divine light is one of the ancient great 9 divine lights. Is it easy to cultivate? If he really can learn it, you also have the qualifications to be his teacher. Otherwise, go find a cold place and stay there. All right. Wei nodded without hesitation. He then reached out with his right hand after speaking. Black mist came out of his right hand and quickly gathered into a black ball. It was possible to see dots of light within the black ball that made it even more mysterious. Wei smiled at Suemo and the black ball flew toward Suemo and entered his body. Suemo's mind blank as he froze where he stood. In this instant, he felt an enormous and heterogeneous flood of mental thoughts swallowing him like an avalanche. Suemo seemed to be situated in a world of strange light. Everywhere was color. Suemo had never seen such a variety and richness of color before. He thought that the colors in the entire world must be in here. Light. These rich colors were all kinds of light. Some were dim, some were bright, some were vivid in color, others as black as ink. They twisted, changed, were destroyed and created again. They lived and died in a cycle, changed constantly and were so vast that Suemo could not see the borders. This was an ocean of light. There seemed to be a voice above Suemo's head, but no matter how hard he tried to hear, he could not hear it clearly. But if he decided to ignore it, the voice would burrow into his ears again. There was only him alone in this rainbow world. In Suemo's sea of consciousness, Pu Yao's face showed shock again. Imprint. The imprint of the soul-setting divine light. Wei smiled slightly. It is fortunate it has not dissipated. Otherwise it would be a pity. Pu Yao remained silent. He was thinking hard in his mind. If it was said that he had been very shocked that Wei understood how to cultivate the soul-setting divine light, then Wei possessing the imprint of the soul-setting divine light made him even more confident of the guess he had. The soul-setting divine light was one of the ancient great 9 divine lights. The number of people who had ever succeeded in cultivating it could be counted on the fingers. In the present day, most cultivators wouldn't have even heard of it. This great skill was famous in the ancient era and definitely had its outstanding aspects. Since Wei possessed the imprint of the soul-setting divine light, then he should have a direct connection to the great ones that had created this great skill. Soul-setting divine light. Soul-setting divine light. A bolt of lightning flashed in Pu Yao's mind, and his pupils suddenly widened. Chapter 477, Danger Soul-Setting Divine Light. The name would occasionally be referenced in some ancient records. It was said that it was made by the heroes of the Sky Pool tribe, fantastical in its effects, enormously famed, and was ranked as one of the 9 great divine lights. Pu Yao had never seen the soul-setting divine light and did not know what it looked like or what abilities it had. It wasn't just the soul-setting divine light, he had never seen any of the other divine lights before. The divine lights mostly appeared in the early stages of the ancient era, and then later disappeared from the records. No one knew why the divine lights had gradually disappeared, but this was not a strange occurrence. Throughout history it was the 9 divine lights the only thing to be lost to time. Many secret methods and wondrous techniques had disappeared over the millennia, each were forever lost in the vast rivers of history. Sky Pool Tribe. What are you to Sky Pool Tribe? Pu Yao stared at Wei. For the first time today, Wei had a shocked expression. As expected from the Encyclopedia of Yao Arts, you even know of my Sky Pool Tribe. He then nodded. You are right, I am from the Sky Pool Tribe. The amount of information Pu Yao had about the Sky Pool Tribe was pitifully little, but within that pitiful amount, it was clear that Sky Pool Tribe had been a tribe with powerful people and had dominated for a time. The two sank into silence. Pu Yao did not know what to say. His understanding of the Sky Pool Tribe was limited to this, and there was no meaning to knowing that Wei came from the Sky Pool Tribe. Wei seemed to be thinking of something and had an reminiscent expression on his face. No matter how famed or powerful the tribe was, it could not stand against the ruthless advance of time. Just like those secret methods and techniques, it also had disappeared in the long river of history. All kinds of color-dazzling light continuously changed and shifted in front of Suemo, coming near and then jumping far away like swimming fish. A bright green light swam in front of Suemo reflexively. Suemo reached out with a hand. When the green light came into contact with Suomo's hand, a slender flow burrowed into his mind. This slender flow contained great amounts of information that was hard to comprehend, profound and unpredictable. What was most wondrous was that thread of vitality within it. This thread of vitality was weak, but the presence was powerful and ancient. That wasn't right. There seemed to be a voice in his mind. As though he was possessed, Suomo relaxed his hand and that bright green light disappeared within the ocean of light like a fish. Suomo shook his head and wanted to clear his mind. This world of light was like a fantasy realm that he did not know what to do with. Fortunately, he remembered everything that Wei had told him previously. Soul-setting divine light. He needed to find soul-setting divine light. Was the soul-setting divine light hidden among these lights? Suomo thought as he searched the lights. He saw a deep red light, and when his mind moved, that deep red light flew towards him. Suomo reached out and touched the red light. A burning and ferocious energy quickly spread up his arm. Suomo felt as though his body was burning. For some unknown reason, the feeling of wrongness increased. He released his hand and the red light instantly swam away. Suomo gradually started to understand. If he thought of any light in his mind, that light would fly into his hand. What he needed to do was to find the soul-setting divine light among these numerous lights. Suomo's brow creased. There were more than billions of lights in here. If he was to try them one by one, then it would be like finding a grain of sand in the ocean. There had to be a way. Suomo sank into thought. He did not notice the lights had changed. You feel he can comprehend soul-setting divine light? Pu Yao looked at Wei and asked, even if there is the imprint, the difficulty would not be low. You have such confidence in him? Wei shook his head and said, I do not have confidence that he will succeed. He then said, the soul-setting divine light is extremely hard to cultivate, and even within the tribe in the past, the number of those who had successfully learned it could be counted on the fingers. The decline of the Sky Pool tribe was due to the loss of the soul-setting divine light. None of the 9 great divine lights are easy to learn. The divine lights have stringent requirements even though we do not know what requirements there are. Then why do give him the imprint? Pu Yao asked. Wei said calmly, in the past, its purpose was to leave behind a seed for the tribe. The Sky Pool tribe has long been gone, and I am just the gravestone armor now. There is no meaning in keeping it. So why can't I give it to him? Pu Yao didn't know what today. This isn't our world now, Wei smiled, his voice deep and calm, the world belongs to him now. I smell danger from this, Pu Yao suddenly said. Wei smiled slightly, of course, how can there not be any risk in learning such an ultimate skill? Just as Suomo's brow was creased as he thought about what to do, the light in the surroundings suddenly moved. Unguarded, Suomo wailed. A red light swept his body. He felt as though he was being boiled in a Dan cauldron, the fire burning every inch of muscle, the heart-boring pain came like a tide, swallowing him. How long has it been since he felt pain like this? Ever since he possessed Golden Crow fire, normal flames could not harm him at all. The Great Day Banded flame was even more domineering and ferocious, providing further protection, a rare flame even among 6th grade flames. It had been too long since he felt the pain of being burned. The pain of every part of his soul being burned had almost caused Suomo to lose his consciousness. At this time, a cold and serene white light fell on his body. The burning pain suddenly became bone-aching cold like ice blades scraping against his bones. Suomo's body uncontrollably trembled. What the motherfucking was going on? There was only this one question in his blank mind. The 9 great divine lights all have their wonders. The so-called divine lights are the lights that were born the instant the chaos formed. The soul-setting divine light is one of them, Wei said conversationally. Pu Yao was also deeply enticed by the secrets Wei was speaking of. He showed shock and disbelief, born accompanying the beginning of chaos. There are treasures like this? It really is a treasure. Wei nodded. The most precious part of the divine lights are related to this. Each thread of divine light contains various amounts of the information about the beginning of everything and the birth of chaos. Pu Yao's pupils suddenly widened as he murmured, "Impossible." He couldn't help but show an yearning expression. There were patterns contained in the manifestations of everything in the world. It was the path that the strong always pursued. No matter if it was Xiuzhe, Yao, or Mo, once they had cultivated to a certain stage, their end goals were unusual in its agreement and similarity. And, that is the most precious part of the divine light. Wei did not explain and continued, but this is also the hardest part of passing on the divine lights. The divine lights were born with the birth of sky and earth, and is hard to understand, but it is also powerful. If the cultivator is not careful, they can turn to ash within the divine light. Pu Yao's expression suddenly changed. His blood eye narrowed to a blade as he said harshly, "You want to harm him?" He had thought there would be a possibility of danger, but hadn't expected it to be so dangerous. Harm him? Wei smiled faintly, "Just some danger. Remember, you and I are also on the boat. If the boat flips, I also cannot escape." Pu Yao's expression eased slightly. That was right, if Mo had an accident, Wei couldn't escape either. Right now, they were 3 ants on the same branch, no one could escape. "How much of a grasp of it do you have?" Pu Yao asked in an unfriendly tone. "No grasp at all." Wei seemed to not see Pu Yao's pot-black expression and said, "Right now, his 3 powers have merged to one, a state which is like those ancient forebearers. If I have to say who is most likely to succeed, then it probably is him, even if the chance is small. Your actions are very dangerous. It has taken me into the danger as well." Pu Yao stared coldly at Wei, looking as though he was going to fight the moment they had a disagreement. If the imprint was not used soon, it would have dissipated. Wei's voice carried sorrow. He raised his head and gazed at Pu Yao. "If it was you, would you take the gamble?" Pu Yao was speechless. Wei was right. If this was him, he would definitely gamble as well. He knew just how valuable this imprint was. If this imprint could be traded, a big sect like Kunlun would be willing to pay any price. It was a priceless pressure. As the ancient tribes have disappeared, the paths of cultivation have diverged. I do not know if the soul-setting divine light is still usable, but I cannot sit idle and watch as it disappears. Wei sighed lightly. This is probably the last of the divine lights in this world. Pu Yao was still silent. Isn't it the same with your archaic wasteland sacrificial art? Could you bear for it to disappear? Didn't you think the same when you took him as your student? Wei looked in the distance as he murmured, "This is not our world anymore, but it was once our world. Would you or I be willing to leave nothing behind?" Pu Yao remained silent, as before. Countless lights continuously swept across Suomo's body. Suomo felt as though he was floating and sinking in hell, experiencing all kinds of feelings. Each destructive light ray almost destroyed him, and each vital life rays restored him. It was a cycle of life and death. At one moment, he felt at the top of the world, and then in the next felt worse than death. All kinds and types of light energies, each ray was different in effect and the taste was naturally different. Suomo felt as though he was a chicken about to be roasted as he was rolled around in all kinds of spices. Suomo forgot about the soul-setting divine light along the way. These damned lights. Suomo gritted and wanted to cry. He was unable to move at all. These rays of light were not under his control and did not show any of the friendliness there was at the beginning. What was worse was that no matter what ray was being shined on his body, his mind was always clear. This meant that he had a good taste of every ray of light. No more. Suomo wanted to shout for aid. There were billions of light rays in here, if he went through all of them. Hell. This was definitely hell. Save me. Chapter 478, divine light. The deep of the cave was a patch of blackness as sparks shot into the air. It was as though the sparks traced the outlines of trees. The sharp hissing of the insects were piercing to the eardrums, and came in waves like the tide. But this shocking insect wave seemed to be stopped by an invisible barrier when it had reached a certain part of the rock and could not go any further. Xiuzhe with good eyes would be able to see this invisible barrier was actually a streak of black shadow. The black shadow was extremely fast and almost hard to catch with the naked eye. 10th grade's little face was covered with sweat. His figure did not slow down as he forcibly pushed back the insect wave. As his Ling power was used up, the suppressed insect wave gradually pushed near the entrance to the cave. Every time this happened, 10th grade would gather his energy and push the insect wave back. The two sides seemed to be playing tug-of-war. After this continued for 4 hours, 10th grade showed weariness on face. The corpses of insects had accumulated and packed on the ground. Threads of black energy rose from the bodies of the insects and burrowed into 10th grade's body. Every time this happened, 10th grade would become refreshed and his attacks would become stronger. At an area extremely close to the mouth of the cave, Lil Black was timidly laying on a piece of rock. Its pair of antennae waved occasionally. If there was the slightest movement, it would rapidly crawl outside the cave entrance. The little ones had gotten the pattern. These insects definitely would not take one step outside the cave. In the beginning few days, the little ones would accompany 10th grade into the cave, but Lil, Pagoda and Li Fire quickly got bored and left to play outside. Only Lil Black was left to stand guard as though he was very loyal. Of course, loyalty aside, if the situation seemed to be going in a bad direction, Lil Black would turn and run, not caring for 10th grade at all. Just like this, 10th grade made trouble day and night for the insects in the cave. Su Ling City seemed to resume its peace. The restless businesspeople could finally rest their hearts. Everything seemed just like before, but everyone understood the sky above Su Ling City had changed. The battle between the Tian family and Turtle Island hadn't just shook Su Ling City, all of Cloud Sea Jie had been rattled. When the other factions discovered an unfamiliar battalion had suddenly charged into the ranks of the top 50, and take the 32nd position, the first thought that occurred in their minds was, who were these people? The Su Ling Battalion, the number 1 battalion of Su Ling sect, was ranked in the 80s, and the two positions were not on the same level at all. Even though Su Ling sect and Turtle Island had not had any conflict, but the silence of Su Ling City in this incident became the synonym of retreat in many people's eyes. In the eyes of the local powers of Su Ling City, the comparison of strength between the two was clear to see at a glance. At the very least, they did not believe that Su Ling sect could destroy the Tian family so easily. The larger powers of Cloud Sea Jie maintained great caution towards this Turtle Island that had risen up. Looking from the intelligence reports they had gathered, Turtle Island's battalion was outfitted extremely well, with things like the Blue Soul Cold Light armor. Their equipment was completely of 4th grade talismans and caused many battalions to drool. Cloud Sea Jie was not a rich place. But a 4th grade outfit like this would not be extraordinary, and there were many that could buy it if it was thousands of sets, then only the most powerful factions could afford it. What really caused jealousy were the unknown golden swords in their hands. Those were talismans above 4th grade. Talismans above 4th grade? Wasn't that 5th grade? When did 5th grade talismans become a part of regular equipment? When they saw this, many people's first response was one of disbelief, but the following reports all provided the truthfulness of this information. This instantly caused a great furor. 5th grade talisman. 5th grade talisman was almost another term for Jindan. Those that had the purchasing power and could forge 5th grade talismans were basically all Jindan. There were no Ningmai that would go and buy 5th grade talismans. Even if they could, they would definitely not bring it out unless they were at death's door. Wealth was a crime. Any person with experience understood this. 5th grade talismans were enough to motivate people to kill and steal. They had never heard of a battalion where every person possessed a 5th-grade talisman. When the news of the 5th-grade talisman spread, there were many battalions that had devious thoughts, but the ranking of 32 for Turtle Island Battalion made them wary. Any battalion that entered the top 50 were not to be easily provoked. But undoubtedly, many more people started to notice this strange faction with an unknown name. However, none of them would ever expect that an enormous alligator had made its way into this remote little pond that was Cloud Sea Jia without a sound. The divine light was like hell. All kinds of rays of light swept to and fro on his body. He switched between euphoria and misery. He switched between befuddlement and clarity, and tasted all the experiences of life. Pu Yao and Wei did not dare to breathe as they stared at Sua Mo, who was shrouded in the light, with nervous expressions. Wei might have spoken with openness and bravado, but when it came to his own survival, it would be false to say he was not nervous. 10 whole hours passed, and nothing about Sua Mo changed. Wei felt slight regret. The divine light was hard to comprehend. No one from the Sky Pool tribe had been able to comprehend it, which was why the imprint had been passed on to him. Sua Mo wasn't one from the Sky Pool tribe. But it was too late to say anything now. He could only pray that Sua Mo could comprehend the divine light. Otherwise, none of them could escape the divine light. Suddenly, the lights around Sua Mo became dim. In about 10 breaths, all light disappeared, and his surroundings quickly became black and a void at a rate visible to the naked eye. Joy came onto Wei's face, but he feared disturbing Sua Mo and did not dare to breath, the nervousness on his face increasing. The space one zhang around Sua Mo completely turned to a void, a bottomless black void. Within the black void, Sua Mo suddenly opened his eyes. Boom! A vast and authoritative presence swept furiously like a gale. Pu Yao and Wei made muffled grunts in unison. Their faces were white as they stared in shock at Sua Mo's eyes. Sua Mo's eyes flashed with an abnormal light and were like stars in the black void. This pair of eyes did not hold one thread of emotion, like a high-up deity looking down at the mortals. Pu Yao snorted coldly, the light in his bloody eye rising as he moved to retaliate. At the side, the shock that was on Wei's face was flushed away by excitement and ecstasy. At this moment, the light in Sua Mo's eyes disappeared completely and showed their original appearance. Sua Mo felt he had had a very long dream. The rays of light in the dream had been so real, but when he thought about it, he could not remember them. There was no soreness or pain in his body, which was as good as when he started. What happened? He asked with puzzlement. Congratulations, Wei said excitedly. Sua Mo turned around and couldn't help but pause when he saw Wei. It was the first time he had seen Wei so excited. For some reason, his mood also became better. Congratulate me on what? Sua Mo couldn't help asking. He furrowed his brow and said puzzled, I just had a very scary dream. Even though he couldn't recall it, but the thought of scary was deeply rooted in his mind. Thinking about it now, he couldn't help but shudder. Right, wasn't I comprehending that soul-setting divine light? Sua Mo recalled what happened before and his eyes suddenly widened. He exclaimed, was I just, yes, Wei couldn't disguise the joy on his face, so congratulations. Sua Mo stilled and asked in response, I succeeded? You completed the most difficult step. Wei's tone was excited. In the past, I had speculated only someone like the Ancient Ones, with the 3 powers merged, could comprehend the divine light. I had not expected it to be so. Under Wei's guidance, Sua Mo found the ray of divine light in his body as expected. But when he found the divine light, he was greatly disappointed. This divine light was as thin as a hair, gray, and had none of the dazzling light of a divine light. Sua Mo couldn't help but frown. This is the divine light. Wei saw Sua Mo's expression and knew what this guy was thinking. He wasn't angry and said with a smile, this is the soul-setting divine light. Don't judge it by its appearance, if you can comprehend its true meaning, its appearance will change. Feel it well, all the wonders of the soul-setting divine light is within it. I cannot teach you the remainder, you need to comprehend on your own. Zhuemo was very discontent at Wei's irresponsible attitude. What about Jinji? Didn't you say that the soul-setting divine light can make Jinji? I was aiming for the Jinji. Wei, it is wrong for you to trick me so, you're making it a habit. Wei didn't know to laugh or cry. Try to recall it, the wonder will naturally occur. There it really is. Zhuomo's mind moved and several unfamiliar spells appeared in his mind. He was slightly shocked and carefully inspected these spells. He said, "Good, you didn't con me. Wei, I'm telling you, don't copy Pu and make a habit of tricking me, becoming a villain." At the side Pu Yao's face became green. Wei roared with laughter and his heart felt light. This divine light imprint had been a sickness in Wei's heart. In the past, there had been high hopes for him, the tribe had thought that he would be the person most likely to comprehend the soul-setting divine light in the tribe, so this imprint had been passed on to him. Yet no matter what, he could not comprehend the divine light. When the danger had come, he had sacrificed himself, turning himself into the spirit of the artifact. He was forged into the gravestone armor, though a secret method to help the people protect the tribe. Yet the tribe still was destroyed later on. Personally seeing the last clansman die, Wei's heart ached. The gravestone armor had passed through the hands of many strong people. His owners had all been very powerful people, but he had never revealed the greatest secret, soul-setting divine light. Because he knew they could not cultivate it. But this imprint was like a chain of fate binding his heart. He only felt relieved of the burden today and was unspeakably happy. The soul-setting divine light that intimidated all of the primitive era once again saw the light of day. Suddenly, he was full of anticipation towards the future. Chapter 479, Triumphant Progress. Frightened out of his wits, Gu Minggong did not struggle as Zhuemo put on the Jinji. His worries gone, Zhuemo went with Gu Minggong to his home, scalped the inside and out to get a small sum of wealth. There wasn't any blood in the pitiful Gu Minggong's face. In reality, he had not recovered from his shock. The other's cultivation was clearly not in Jindan but was able to put Jinji on his body. This upended all the conventions he knew. He also did not resist the series of what could be called complex missions that Zhuemo sent down. Teaching forging, preparing materials. Gu Minggong was an old-timer and had seen everything. He was clear to his situation. Captives never had the right to bargain. If the other was not desiring his skill in forging, his bones would probably be cold right now. He was not unfamiliar with teaching. Due to his title of Seal Immortal, many people would frequently come to his home and ask for guidance. As to forging, that was his profession. However, when he entered Golden Crow camp for the first time and looked at the densely packed crowd of forging shoujo below, he couldn't help but be shocked. Only now did he readjust his judgment of Turtle Island's power. There were only rare factions that could possess such a large number of forging shoujo, even the big sects did not have them. Feeling shock, Gu Minggong was shocked again. When he had taught to a point and told them they could try it out, the crowd below simultaneously showed their Golden Crow fire. In a flash, his eyes were dazzled by 2,000 Golden Crow fire flames, and the blood in his body froze. The spectacular scene in front of him surpassed the limits of his imagination. When was 4th grade Golden Crow fire an essential part of people's equipment? What joke was this? He muddled through the first class. He felt that he was an experienced and worldly person, but when he finally managed to recover from the shock from the first class and sorted his emotions out to start his second class, he received another blow. Many students came with the talismans they had just forged in search of guidance. Gu Minggong instantly felt better. Eager and hardworking students would always be preferred by teachers. But when he saw several of the talismans that came from the forge, the expression on his face froze. What formation was this? Hadn't seen it before. Didn't see this one either. This one, still hadn't seen it before. Embarrassment. Great embarrassment. The pitiful Gu Mingdong's face was completely red and he wanted to find a hole to bury himself in. If the teacher was unable to solve a question from a student, he could generously praise the student for being very creative. But if he was unable to solve a number of student problems so early on, then that definitely was very awkward and shameful. Heavens, earth, spare me. He didn't know if they heard the wail in his heart, but the two masters came over to rescue him. Another muddled class. However, Gu Mingdong found the two masters after class and asked them about those unfamiliar and strange formations he had encountered today. He was a smart person. Even though he felt very embarrassed by what happened today, he did not have an avenue of retreat. If he just retreated the slightest bit, what was waiting for him was a chop. No one would keep a captive that was useless, especially his exceptionally frugal master. No matter what, he needed to show his value to the best of his abilities. The more value he showed, the better his situation would be and the further away from death he was. He was quickly immersed and enchanted by these strange and wondrous formations. These formations were completely different than any formation he had learned before, but they held an unusual attraction that caused him to be greatly obsessed. And when he saw the true form of these formations, those beautiful yet eerie Mo matrices, he was uncontrollably addicted and unable to pull himself away. With the addition of Gu Mingdong, the deconstruction rate of the Mo matrix progressed just as fast as the forging skill level of Golden Crow Camp. The situation of Turtle Island grew increasingly better. As Ma Fan, Lai Peng, and Nian Lu had completed their core formations successfully, it meant that Turtle Island started to enter the era of Jindan. With them, Turtle Island had more than 6 Jindan. The two masters of Golden Crow Camp, because of the benefits they had received from communicating and discussing with Gu Mingdong, felt the signs and entered seclusion to aim for Jindan. What was most unexpected was Chun Yucheng. When he had been raising ling beasts used for ling plant farming, he coincidentally comprehended a completely new husbandry spell called the 10,000 Beast Body Rearing spell. His ling power exploded in a short time and he started his seclusion without a sound. Guard Camp was in a complete transformation. Ever since Pu had lost the bet with Wei, Guard Camp that had been once directed by Pu Yao had landed in Wei's hand. In terms of Mo cultivation, Pu Yao really wasn't Wei's opponent. The Great Day Hardship Guard, that Pu Yao put so much effort to change, was taken by Wei. He changed a few places and that caused the power of the scripture to grow. In addition, Wei's greatest accomplishment was to successfully change Xu Long and Awen into battle generals. The methods of Mo battle generals were completely different than the other two races. Wei's previous owner was a very powerful Mo battle general, yet what was unexpected to everyone was Zui Mo was the best Mo battle general. Zui Mo seemed to innately understand how to merge everyone's power together. Xu Long and Awen were far lacking compared to him in this area. Everyone collectively opposed the idea of Zui Mo's leading the charge at the front lines. Xu Long and Awen were furiously cultivating so they could prevent Zui Mo from being at the front. Benefiting from the explosion of income on the island, Zui Mo waved his hand and got all the materials and jingsher that Guard Camp needed to make Mo weapons. The present Guard Camp had exchanged their muskets for cannons. Wei was feeling very good, so naturally Pu Yao was extremely discontent. The proud Pu could not accept losing Guard Camp. But he stood by his bet and he definitely could not do something as demanding to take it back. In his mind, Guard Camp wasn't anything, but he could not let go of losing to Wei. When Wei changed, Great Day Hardship Guard, and made Mo battle general cultivation as his first accomplishments, Pu Yao was furious. In the past, Wei had said with a straight face that he did not understand. So this guy had nefarious aims long ago. Knowing he had been tricked, Pu Yao did not show it, but held the hatred inside. Pu Yao quickly found a solution. Go to 10-finger prison. Zui Mo was slightly puzzled, but when he thought it had been a long time since he saw Nan Yu, Zhangzhe, Ming Juzi, and the others, he happily agreed. Okay, let's go see. The human and the Yao came to 10-Finger Prison. The wasteland beast chessboard was just like before, but there seemed to be less people and it seemed quiet. Zhuemo quickly found the trio of Nanyu, Zhangzhe, and Ming Juzi. When the three saw Zhuemo, they were overjoyed and came over to greet him. However, their eyes were more curious about Pu Yao. The strong presence of Pu Yao was really too obvious and made the trio's hearts shake. Zhuemo was slightly shocked. Pu Yao had shown his true self, this was unlike his usual behavior. What did this guy want to do? But pushing aside his puzzlement, he introduced, this is Pu. Pu Darren, good day. The three said as they bowed together. Pu Yao smiled slightly, greetings to you three. Pu Yao was peerlessly handsome with a thread of evilness. With this slight smile, he was like the rose that bloomed in the dark night, scary but enchanting. The three had never seen such a smile before and couldn't help but be stunned. Nanyu also showed a rare blush. Zhuemo felt even more puzzled. Pu Yao wasn't normal today. But Zhuemo quickly threw this thought to the back of his mind and asked how the trio was doing lately. The three had been doing very well lately, especially in the area of Yao arts where they improved rapidly. In order to increase their ability to help each other, Nanyu and Ming Juzi all moved their clans to the lands of the Grey Clan so they could help and support each other. The three thought of themselves as the students of Xiao Mo, advancing and moving together. As the trio increased in strength, the strength of their clans also increased. The lands of the Grey Clan was remote and there were no other factions. Their lives were becoming better. However, the three could not disguise their worries. Upon closer inquiry, Zhuemo finally learned that the state of the Yao was not very good recently. After two major corps, Fierce Fire and Ice Frost, were destroyed, Bloody Sky Metropolis Jie truly became a meat grinder that was soaked in blood everywhere. The three factions continuously fought, continuously changing the territorial boundaries, seesawing back and forth. The battles were fierce and the losses on the three sides were huge. Just a few days ago, a troop of Xiuzhe had appeared without any warning in the innermost area of the Yao territory and caused great damage. Even though this troop was killed in the end, but they had done great damage. They had found after the fact that these Xiuzhe had made their way through an unknown chaos rift. But this incident caused great terror in the Yao world. Even though the battle at the front lines had never stopped, for most Yao this did not affect their lives. The cruel truth had smashed their naive thinking into smithereens. They found, in shock, that war was so close to them and could appear next to them at any moment. What was even more scary was that another small Xiuzhe battalion had appeared in another Yao Jie not long after. It was fortunate that this was a large Jie so the troops stationed there were very strong and not a great deal of damage was done. But this caused the normal Yao that were already feeling unsafe to become even more scared. They could not even guarantee the smallest Yao Jie had been searched all over. No one knew if there were chaos rifts in the unexplored areas around them, leaving them insecure. Many families sent out people to search their surroundings and started a web-like search to destroy weaknesses that could exist. Very quickly, there was a clan that found an extremely hidden chaos rift 50 li from the family base. All the people of the clan were frightened out of their bodies, and moved their clan away that night. Incidents like this occurred continuously in the recent days and a mood of terror spread. The three also had the same worries. The area they resided in was remote and no real powers in the area so their living was very easy. Due to this, if Xiuzhe really invaded, they also lacked the ability to protect themselves. After the three finished speaking, Zhuemo couldn't help but worry for them. Even though Nanyu and the others were Yaoma but they were much closer to Zhuemo than normal Xiuzhe. Naturally, he did not want anything to happen to them. At this time, Pu Yao's enchanting voice sounded, I have a solution. Chapter 480, wind and clouds moved. Qinghua Shui had been secretly monitoring Xiao Moge's movements after their battle. But after the war chess match, Xiao Moge seemed to have evaporated from the Yao world and his location was unknown. Many factions that were interested in Xiao Moge and put in great effort into their search but could not find even a trace. Who was Xiao Moge? No one knew. This genius youth that appeared out of nowhere was as dazzling as a meteor and just as mysterious. No one knew where he came from, no one knew who he really was, no one knew where he had learned those high-level Yao arts that seemed extremely ancient. He was like an unfathomable riddle. Among the younger generation of Yao, his power was definitely not ranked in the top. Every Yao youth could come up with a pile of names that were more powerful than he was. Up to now, he only had a prison-breaking battle, a battle arena, and a war chess matches. Compared to those great geniuses that had gone through hundreds of fights at such a young age, his accomplishments were much dimmer. But with these 3 battles, the name of Xiao Moge seemed to have a strange attraction that enchanted many people. Qinghua Shui, who had actually fought against him, felt this more than the great majority of people. She had been secretly paying attention to Xiao Moge. The branch she was part of was a cadet branch of the Blue Flower family, but the power that she could use was not something a normal family could rival. Everyone also knew about the conflict between Xiao Moge and the Blue Flower family. The attention she paid Xiao Moge did not attract any curiosity in the clan. When Qinghua Shui had any news of Xiao Moge, he would take it to his sister. But as Xiao Moge's disappearance increased in length, many people gradually lost their patience, for example Ji Liu. Qinghua Shui was very patient and she did not need to attend to countless matters like Ji Liu. She was just the most average young person in the family. No one knew she possessed astounding strength. Only her brother, Qinghua Shui, had guessed a part of it. She patiently waited for her target to appear. Her wait was finally repaid. Nan Yu, who had a connection to Xiao Moge, led her clan to leave. This instantly attracted her attention. She immediately found an excuse to leave the family and secretly followed Nan Yu. Several accidents in the journey attracted her attention. Nan Yu seemed to have almost detected her a few times. This caused great shock in her. The power that Nan Yu displayed along the journey, especially that powerful Yao art, caused Qinghua Shui even greater shock. It was long an open secret that Xiao Moge possessed great amounts of high-level Yao arts. This was also why many speculated that he had a great birth. She was amazed at the power of the South Sky Arrow art, but she did not have the thought to steal it. Her own Blue Flower was not lacking compared to the others' Yao art. She secretly arrived with Nan Yu to the base of the Grey clan. Not long after, Ming Ju Zi's clan also arrived. All the signs caused Qinghua Shui to feel excitement. Xiao Moge must be planning something. Otherwise, why would the 3 clans gather together? Time slipped away. The 3 resided as neighbors and there was not any action. Qinghua Shui idly waited without any impatience. She found a residence located near the place the 3 clans were residing. The residents nearby were filled with goodwill towards this warm and quiet little girl. Some generous aunts would come visit occasionally to help and she felt even happier than she did at home. This day, she woke up early just like normal. The residence was by the border of a forest with the building's doorway facing a river. The land of the 3 clans was on the other side of the river. She could see the other side without even leaving her door. On the other side of the river, a large group of people were gathered on the empty space beside the river. Qinghua Shui clearly saw that the leaders were Nan Yu's trio. They seemed to be practicing some kind of battle formation. Qinghua Shui's eyes lit up. Were they creating a battalion? Thinking about Xiao Moge's golden battle general status, she didn't find it strange. However, she had watched the 3 clans for a long time and knew their situation. Of the 3 clans, the Grey clan was the strongest, but they were just a little clan. Nan Yu's clan only had 11 people while Ming Ju Zi's clan was also a little clan. It was impossible to make a battalion with these few people, but Nan Yu's group were clearly practicing battle formations. Qinghua Shui didn't know much about battle formations, but she could still see the power in it. A daring thought suddenly charged into her mind: Xiao Mo Gu had returned. For some reason, excitement suddenly appeared in her usually calm heart. Sui Mo did not think much of Pu Yao's great plan. He felt that this was Pu Yao acting out of embarrassment in hopes that he could wash away the shame of Wei taking guard camp away from him. A battalion? How many people did Nan Yu and the others have? What battalion could they make? Just nonsense. He could only feel sympathy for Nan Yu and the others. Pu Yao's great anger would probably vent on this little pitiful group of friends, but he didn't plan on stopping this. If Pu Yao's anger moved to him, he couldn't deal with it either. If Pu Yao started to fight Wei again, the person harmed would be him. If the tenants fought, the property damaged would still be the landlord's. So Sui Mo wisely closed his mouth, did not speak and did not oppose. Nan Yu, wait for GE to get rich, GE will make it up to you guys. So Sui Mo threw himself back to his cultivation with a mind at peace. The matters of the island were going smoothly and there was nothing he needed to worry about. He could finally cultivate with a peaceful heart. This was extremely difficult for him. After the three powers became one, his three powers could change among themselves, but there were weak and strong powers. Without a doubt, his Mo physique was the most powerful, followed by his consciousness, and his Ling power was ranked last. By now, he finally tasted the trouble that his shortcoming of Ling power brought him. The three powers were like a bucket of water made from 3 plants of wood. How much water this bucket could hold was not decided by the longest plank, but by the shortest. His pitiful Ling power was undoubtedly the shortest wood plank. If he could not repair this shortest plank, then no matter how much he added to the other 2 planks, there was no use. In reality, his Mo physique and consciousness had almost stopped growing. Sui Mo knew that the culprit that had created this situation was his Ling power. The pitiful Sui Mo held the black processing meditation mat in his right hand, a handful of Jingshi in his left as he cultivated Ling power day and night in the hopes that he could increase his Ling power as soon as possible. Su Ling sect. What? Lu Zhen's expression changed dramatically. His voice became hoarse. How did the news leak? Huang Jie's face was ashen, his eyes terrified as he said in a trembling tone, I don't know. We've been very good at keeping it a secret. The people below never had the chance to interact with the outside, then how did it leak? Lu Zhen furiously interrupted him. His forehead was filled with beads of sweat, his tendons showing. Don't know, Huang Jie's face was as white as paper as he mumbled soullessly. At this time, a disciple stumbled in. Bad news. Bad news. Sect leader. Li San has been killed, bam. Huang Jie's legs weakened and he sat down on the ground with a hopeless face. At this moment, Lu Zhen recovered a thread of calm. He knew what was most important at this time was not to make any measures to resolve this but to report to the top immediately. Zhongru walked with bare feet and closed eyes on the streets of Suling City like a normal Diana show. The people that recognized him along the way all showed respectful expressions, and silently bowed towards him. In a short time, Turtle Island had become the faction most respected by low-level Xiuzhi in Suling City. Compared to Su Ling's sect that ignored everything else, the other factions that tried to oppress them, the friendliness that Turtle Island showed low-level Xiuzhi was something they had never seen before. Of the many Turtle Island cultivation classes, Zhongru was the most diligent. Diana Xiu were a very special group among Xiuzhi. Their obsession with spreading their Diana path far surpassed other Xiuzhi. Sword Xiu only sought the sword and many did not have a successor during their entire lives. They would only leave behind their knowledge to those who were fortunate. Seal Xiu were always immersed in the formations and seals, and did not have any interest in taking disciples either. Roaming Shio mostly passed their skills from father to son, keeping their skills a family secret. What Diana Shio wanted was to spread their skills to everyone. They were more willing to pass what they know. The Sky Wave Fist scripture, that Zhong Ru first cultivated, had been passed on to him for free from an old Diana Shio. Even though the cultivation classes required paying fees, but the number of people that came to each class to learn far surpassed the number that were registered. He never sent them away and only serenely taught. That serene and calm aura was something even Yi Zheng, who came from a famed sect, couldn't help but admire. Even now, Yi Zheng could not understand why this Diana Shio that did not have orthodox origins was even more powerful than the Shixiang from the temple. It wasn't that he was stronger in strength but in the presence of a Diana Shio. Zhong Ru's lectures were extremely long, and usually spanned multiple days. The number of Diana Shio that came to listen increased over time, and many came from other cities to listen. After class, Zhong Ru liked to stroll along the streets. For some reason, whenever he walked among this bustling tide of people, he could feel a strange movement in his heart. This strange feeling attacked his mind as though it wanted to tell him something, so he would do it often. Strolling quickly became one of his practices. But today, Zhong Ru stopped in his steps. At the opposite street corner, a group of people with treasure lights laughed and talked heedlessly. "Ho, this Su Ling city is pretty prosperous." The one that spoke was a male dressed in red robes. He looked around furtively and then his eyes suddenly lit up. "That girl isn't bad." Where? The other people instantly became excited and crowded over. "There, that one, do you see, the one in blue armor? Those bones," the red-robed male drooled. The other people also looked with bright eyes. "All right. Don't make trouble." The people that had been drooling instantly withered. The one that spoke was a middle-aged person. His tone was cold as his gaze slowly swept the surroundings. What was strange was that his gaze seemed like the black ice at the bottom of the earth. It carried astounding coldness. Everywhere it passed, the temperature dropped and the ice was bone-achingly cold. A puddle rapidly turned to ice. All the passerby in the surroundings were shocked and scattered in panic. The middle-aged man's gaze landed on Zhong Ru's body. Without any sound, a layer of white frost appeared on Zhong Ru's body, especially his eyebrows that were covered in frost. His brows suddenly trembled, and the frost fell. Zhong Ru slowly opened his eyes. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.